Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening, just watching. Don't be like that, training is more worthwhile than fighting these guys, trust me. Luffy said, trying to reassure the green-haired swordsman. Seems like they're aiming that funny-looking cannon at us. Yamato spoke next to me, and Luffy turned to look towards the island. There, the famous buggy ball was pointed at them. That cannon may look silly, but it has a lot of attack power, and don't worry, I'll take care of it. Luffy affirmed confidently. Huh? And me? Didn't I take care of the ship's defense? Sharky. Zoro and Ameni Megalo immediately expressed dissatisfaction. Zoro because I had told him to stay in place and take care of it, while Megalo felt somewhat useless since he had no task there. Look closely at what will happen and tell me later how you'll take care of it, I said to Zoro as I prepared for the buggy ball aimed at us. Bang! I heard the explosion as the cannonball was coming at high speed towards the ship. Luffy looked at it and opened one hand. A purple flame began to spin around his palm as it was being charged with more power with each passing moment. When he saw that there was enough power in his hand, he pointed it in that direction, and the flame shot out as if it were a cannonball from his hand. Boom! When it left my hand, a small explosion was heard. The cannonball and the flame collided at high speed, 1 kilometer between the ship and the island. The cannonball was fired much earlier, but my flame was much faster. When the two collided, nullifying their progress on the way, a flash appeared, followed by a force impact and an explosion of water, fire, and steam was seen in front of the ship and the island. Boom! The light was the first thing that blinded the spectators, followed by the deafening noise, as a shockwave manifested in a 360-degree direction. To all sides, they felt the explosion. My God! What was that? We could be dead now. I'm sorry. Hey, this is not a joke. How the hell do these pirates have such a weapon? So scary. Sharky. Does anyone realize that the captain had the same explosive power as that bomb, just by throwing a flame through his hand? That was so fun. Luffy's crewmates each had a different opinion, while trying to balance themselves on the ship, which was shaking a lot and unstable after receiving an impact of this magnitude. Chapter 16, Orange Town 1. As soon as the explosion subsided and the entire area fell into silence, all those who had witnessed this spectacle were left wondering what had just happened. Whistle in the midst of the silence that enveloped the atmosphere, Luffy whistled, breaking the quiet, and exclaimed. That was amazing, the art is an explosion. Ha ha ha. Luffy laughed heartily, snapping the rest of his crew out of their dazed state, and they stared at him as if he were a madman. How can you find this incredible? Kuina and Lamy shouted comically. Luffy paid no attention to them and looked at the island, still some distance away. He turned to his crew with a smile. I think our friends are waiting for us, so let's keep attacking them. Luffy said as the ship regained speed after the explosion had temporarily hindered its progress. Are the cannons ready? Keep firing, Kuina, you're in charge of them. I'll head over there to attack the center of Buggy's camp with Yamato. Luffy said as wings sprouted from his back, and his hair grew. Yamato exclaimed in surprise when she was suddenly grabbed by Luffy and swiftly pulled into the air. Luffy soared into the sky with Yamato in tow, covering 2 kilometers in no time and landing in the square where the bandits' camp was located. Chaos reigned at the fringes of the location, but the center remained relatively unaffected by the marine ship's explosions. Luffy observed that they were preparing another buggy ball to shoot at the ship quickly, and he wasn't going to allow that to happen again. Hovering about 500 meters above the ground, with his arm wrapped around Yamato's waist, they rapidly descended at high speed. How is the ship intact after that attack? Machi asked in disbelief. They had been celebrating when they witnessed the explosion, thinking it had hit the ship. However, as the steam and smoke cleared, they were dumbfounded to see the ship approaching, seemingly unaffected by the explosion. Is it just me, or was the buggy ball explosion much more powerful than usual? I believe they intercepted the bomb before it hit the ship since the explosion seemed quite close. Kabaji commented next to Buggy. So prepare another buggy ball. Buggy shouted, and everyone readied themselves to launch another attack on the marine ship. Meanwhile, unnoticed by them, Luffy and Yamato had landed with a powerful thud. Boom. The sudden noise caught the attention of the pirates and the orange-haired girl, who watched in surprise as these figures appeared after the dust from the earlier attack began to settle. "Who are you, you scoundrels?" Buggy was the first to speak, clearly enraged, as he witnessed these two individuals. He shouted hysterically, seeing a tall, tattooed man wearing black pirate clothes with a straw hat on his back, along with a taller woman with horns holding a massive spiked cane abo. They seemed to have appeared magically in the midst of the ongoing battle against the Navy, which was drawing closer. "Since you asked, I'll answer. My name is Monkey D. Luffy. The man who will dominate all the seas of this world," Luffy announced with a confident smile. "Huh? Do you think you're the Pirate King? You're insane. Kill them," Buggy immediately ordered, unwilling to hear any more of this nonsense. Boom. Boom. As Buggy shouted, the approaching marine ship continued firing cannonballs at the pirates under Kuina's direct orders on the ship's deck. 10 men ran towards Luffy and Yamato, brandishing swords with malicious intent. Yamato took a step forward and effortlessly used her Kanabo to send anyone who came close flying like rockets. The witnesses were horrified to see this scene. "Captain Buggy, they're monsters," several of the men commented, their faces displaying shock. "What? Kill them using the buggy pole," Buggy ordered, seeing the broken and unconscious bodies. "I won't allow that," Luffy stated as he used his speed to pass through the pirates and appeared next to the cannon. The pirates were preparing to fire at point-blank range. "What?" A chorus of voices was heard as Luffy stood next to the cannon and used his muscles to lift the entire metal cannon effortlessly from the ground. Hee, sorry, but I'll take this," Luffy said as he casually grabbed the cannon and raised it high, tossing it more than 500 meters into the sea like it was a toy. "What?" A chorus was heard as the pirates witnessed Luffy's superhuman strength when he threw their primary weapon into the air. "It can't be possible?" The orange-haired girl was left in shock, choking on her words after witnessing Luffy's incredible display of strength. She had never known or seen that humans could be so strong. Both Buggy, Kabaji, Maji, the giant lion, Richie, and the rest of the pirates were left astounded by the display of inhuman power. "That must be the power of some devil fruit," Buggy exclaimed. Seeing the horrified silence that had taken over, Luffy turned to Buggy and said, "Buggy, I'll give you a choice. I'll either let you surrender peacefully or beat you up before taking your bounty. What do you say?" Luffy inquired, aiming to further provoke the comical clown. "What did you say, you scoundrel? Are you bounty hunter Zoro?" Buggy shouted angrily at Luffy's audacity but soon asked, curious if Zoro had arrived in the East Blue. "No, I'm a pirate, and I'm after money, so I'll rob you and claim your bounty. Big red nose." Luffy grinned greedily and shouted to further provoke Buggy. "What did you say? Curse you. Kabaji and Maji, deal with that woman, and I'll take care of this audacious pirate," Buggy said with hatred. He yelled without any concern for the approaching marines, as he launched an attack at Luffy. This man had enraged him and mocked his nose. "Bara bara ho." Buggy launched an attack with knives between his fingers. Luffy looked at it and sighed. "Then die." Luffy heard Buggy's words and, rather than using his devil fruit power, he simply dodged the knives. "Don't run away, you scoundrel," Luffy heard Buggy shout as he easily evaded. "Hey, is that your best speed?" Mocking the clown, Luffy sprinted towards him with his fists. Buggy, seeing him coming, smiled, thinking that this man didn't possess the same speed he had demonstrated when he had appeared next to the cannon earlier. But Buggy, expecting to split his body to escape Luffy's attack, only detached his head, leaving his body exposed. Luffy didn't stop, remembering the same scene from the early chapters of the original story. What an idiot. Luffy couldn't help but taunt as he punched the exposed body with his normal strength, yet his enhanced body and the benefits of his zone-type devil fruit made his physical power an effortless weapon. He felt his punch burying into Buggy's abdomen. "I thought the fool would only do this in the anime, but it seems I overestimated him," Luffy thought as he watched Buggy's body in front of him react to his punch. Quickly, the body had shrunk under the explosive impact. Buggy's head, floating in the air, had eyes rolled up as he sputtered, spitting out saliva. Afterward, the body soared like a rocket towards some nearby structures. Boom. "Captain Buggy!" The pirates cried out as they saw their captain's body flying, while his head suffered in the air. Chapter 17, Orange Town 2. Buggy crashed directly into one of the houses, but his impact force was just enough to crack the structure. Buggy's headless body fell to the ground, and his head, still in the air, displayed all the agony of the impact. "Damn!" was the only muttered word he managed to utter through the pain, unable to breathe as he felt his bones breaking upon impact. Come on, I expected more from you. Luffy taunted, while Buggy still remained in the air with blank eyes. Meanwhile, Kabaji and Mushi, with their lion, approached Yamato, unaware of how the battle between Buggy and Luffy was going. Huh? So, you guys are my opponents? Yamato asked calmly. Neither of the two pirates responded as they advanced. Kabaji was rapidly approaching her on a unicycle, wielding a katana, while Mushi was even faster, riding Richie. Yamato felt no threat from them. She simply leaned to the side, waiting for the lion to jump at her. Ruar the lion leaped with murderous intent towards Yamato. Using her kanabo, she struck the lion while it was suspended in the air. Spectators could hear bones breaking, and the lion made a whimpering sound, never having a chance. Maya-wa. The lion flew like a bullet with Mushi still mounted on top, heading directly for one of the other houses in the town. Boom. The explosion left all the pirates dressed as clowns wide-eyed, watching one of their main members, along with that lion monster, easily defeated by this strange girl with red and yellow horns. Kabaji stopped his advance at that moment, sweating profusely as he was too nervous to continue after witnessing that scene. He began to pedal backward, torn by indecision about whether he could face this incredibly powerful girl. Where do you think you're going? He heard a voice behind him. She had been right in front of him just a moment ago, and he hadn't even seen her move, all while wearing an innocent smile. Kabaji-san. The pirates were horrified to see yet another one of their strongest members cornered. Boom. Another house was destroyed as Yamato sent him flying alongside his partner. How boring, they're all so weak. Yamato muttered, making everyone who heard it wonder where this monstrous girl had come from. Seeing that the fight was over and that the other pirates didn't seem willing to continue, Yamato turned her body toward where Luffy was battling Buggy. By this time, the sounds of the ship's cannons had already ceased. Most likely, their crew had reached the island and was closing in on this camp. And Buggy was still making groaning sounds, his head reattaching to his broken body in the wreckage. Luffy let him do that calmly. He quickly shook himself, spat out some saliva, and looked indignantly at the man in the hat. You bastard, that was a low blow. Buggy shouted with a thin voice. They say clowns are funny, and I must admit, you do have a strong body to remain conscious after that attack. Luffy said with a calm smile, trying to provoke the man in front of him. Yamato, can you handle the rest of the crew? Luffy yelled to Yamato. While I deal with this big-nosed, ugly, and unstylish clown. Luffy smiled at Buggy, releasing smoke as he said all that once again. You bastard, I'll kill you. Buggy, if he had any fear due to the man's strength in front of him, his anger had blinded him to it. His hatred fueled his actions as he charged at the man, his waist separating into halves. With his legs split, it began spinning toward Luffy, just like in the anime, with a blade attached to the front of his boot. Senpai. Luffy, seeing it coming his way, simply dodged it. Buggy's attacks kept coming, and Luffy easily evaded those spinning legs. Huh? Luffy noticed knives flying his way. He raised his hand, and a firebolt shot towards the knives. The metal disintegrated upon contact with the scorching substance. Purple flames? What kind of fruit is this? Buggy couldn't help but exclaim. But the clown wasn't intimidated by this power, as he had a sadistic grin on his face, and his arm had no hand on it. Luffy had already noticed that the missing hand was still on his back, holding a knife, but he patiently waited for Buggy to make his move. Die! Buggy screamed as his hand flew toward Luffy. Buggy, seeing that Luffy was not dodging, smiled sadistically. However, his grin faded as his daggers struck the man's skin, failing to penetrate despite passing through his pirate mantle. Is that all you've got? Luffy's voice broke the silence as he asked calmly. Yeah. Are you a monster? Buggy shouted in fear this time. A man like you shouldn't be surprised, considering everything you witnessed before starting your own crew, clown. Luffy taunted, noting Buggy's surprise. Don't tell me you know. Buggy was now nervous, as his past was a delicate matter for him. Buggy, you're a disappointment. Attacking and robbing civilians in the weakest sea? And to think you were once aboard that ship. Luffy spoke in a serious tone. Huh? Who are you? How do you know that? Buggy seemed even more nervous now. I've already told you who I am. My name is Monkey D. Luffy. The man who will conquer the seas. Do you see this hat? Luffy took it from his back. I made a promise to Shanks, and I intend to keep it. This statement made Buggy widen his eyes considerably. That's the same hat Shanks used. No wonder it looked so familiar. He exclaimed with his voice in a high-pitched tone. While Shanks is an emperor in the New World, you're here, abusing civilians. Luffy was genuinely disappointed in Buggy. The clown had become just another pirate, caught in the cycle. Without saying more, Luffy grabbed Buggy's hand that held the knife, which was still suspended on his back, and slapped it. Ouch. That hurts. Buggy couldn't help but cry out. Shaking his head in disappointment, Luffy advanced toward Buggy, who didn't even have time to react before taking a punch to the face, immediately knocking him out. All the pirates present were left stunned as their captain was sent flying into a city building once again. Boom. What? Captain Buggy was defeated. The chorus of voices erupted. Yamato, finish off the rest. Luffy ordered Yamato, who was still taking down the fleeing pirates with ease, moving faster. Yamato, now using all her speed, disappeared from the area and began moving among the remaining, unconscious pirates, swiftly knocking them out. In a short time, the whole place was filled with pirates on the ground, unconscious and groaning in pain. Luffy, satisfied with that, turned his gaze to the cage where the girl named Nami was. The girl had a bewildered look, not fully comprehending what was happening. Yo. Luffy announced his presence as he walked over to her, pulling her out of her dazed state. Nami, still extremely surprised, looked at the tall man in front of her without knowing what to say. She had been expecting her death just moments ago, but now she was alive, facing these strange people who had appeared out of nowhere and defeated the pirates with such ease. Hi. Hello? She stammered in front of this relentless man. Chapter 18, Orange Town 3. What's your name? This was the first thing Luffy asked as he greeted the girl in front of the cell. Nami. She replied with a hint of nervousness. Well, Nami, you're free now. Luffy said as he unlocked her cell and opened the door. Hey, why is everyone already defeated? A frustrated Zoro's voice echoed as he rushed in, ready for a fight, scanning for any standing enemies. Haha, sorry, it seems we were faster. Luffy said, freeing the girl with an embarrassed smile. Seconds later, the place was filled with the entire crew, appearing one after another. It looks like you took care of everyone without any problems. Kuina grumbled, observing about 30 unconscious bodies on the ground and some damaged buildings. So strong. Luffy-sama and Yamato-sama took care of all the bad guys? Shirahoshi asked in amazement. She hadn't witnessed their battle. A mermaid. Nami noticed Shirahoshi, who had flown in with the group. She recognized her as a mermaid because Shirahoshi's tail was partially visible beneath her dress at the moment. Nami studied the princess for a moment before she noticed the other peculiar members of the group, such as Bippo, the bear dressed in beach attire, and Megalo, the shark that floated in midair, encased in a bubble of air, seemingly breathing oxygen just like any land-dwelling animal. Nami's full attention remained on the timid girl with a tail, as her previous experiences with fishmen had not been positive, and she had heard the stories about the mermaids that Arlong and others had told. Seeing a hint of anger in Nami's eyes as she glanced at Shirahoshi, Luffy decided to speak up. Yes, she's one of our crew members. We are the Straw Hat Pirates. Luffy confidently declared with a smile, expressing his pride. Nami, now outside the cell, couldn't help but give the peculiar group an odd look before Luffy's words sank in. She realized that, aside from the mermaid, there was a bear walking like a human and a shark floating in the air in a bubble of air. The shark seemed to be breathing oxygen just like a land-dwelling creature. When Luffy's declaration about being pirates finally registered, Nami's gaze turned icy, but the earlier confusion had left her too disoriented to process it properly. Wait, where do you think you're going? Luffy asked as he suddenly interjected with an amused smile, sensing Nami's desire to distance herself from the group. Nami stopped for a moment, expecting the pirates, including Luffy, to do something to her. With a mischievous smile, Luffy continued, while the others observed the interaction, curious about their captain's intentions. Don't worry, you can go, but you have to go in that direction. Everything related to the pirates is now ours. Luffy declared, well aware that Nami had been heading toward the pirate ship to steal their treasures. But the pirates have my things. Nami protested, raising her voice in alarm and dissatisfaction. As I said, the pirates' belongings are now ours. You're free to leave, and we'll take their things as our spoils of victory. That's how pirates operate. Luffy stated matter-of-factly. He didn't seem to care much about what Nami thought. He was convinced that, no matter how noble her cause might be in saving her village and its inhabitants, she would betray him in the end. Luffy thought the original Luffy had been too soft on her. Kuina and Lami raised their eyebrows at this, as they had heard Luffy mention earlier that Nami would be a member of their crew. However, before they could raise the issue, Nami spoke up. Wait. You are pirates, right? Nami suddenly found herself with only one option. Luffy looked at her indifferently, but there was a hidden gleam of amusement in his eyes. Yes, I just said that. Luffy said plainly. Why don't you let me join your crew? I'm a great navigator. Nami announced. This piqued everyone's interest. Some could see that Nami was more interested in the treasures, but they kept quiet, waiting for Luffy's response. A navigator? Luffy mused, rubbing his chin. I don't know. I think we actually need a housekeeper. If there were one around, maybe I'd take them under my flag and onto my ship, where we could conquer a lot of gold and money." Luffy muttered aloud. "We clearly need a navigator." The entire crew thought simultaneously but refrained from speaking out, hoping to see what Luffy had in mind. "A housekeeper?" Nami's face contorted with anger. "Anyway, everyone, let's gather all their treasures," Luffy ordered as he redirected his attention to his crew, seemingly dismissing enemy. "Lami and Bippo, collect all the treasure from the ship. I heard they have a map of the Grand Line," Luffy instructed, and they headed to Buggy's ship, which was parked at the port and hadn't been damaged by cannon fire. "I'm a great housekeeper," Nami quickly shouted when she heard this, rushing toward Luffy. "Great, we have a new crew member," Luffy announced, his voice dripping with irony. But nobody said anything, patiently waiting for their captain to reveal his plan for the girl who obviously had her eye on their treasure. "Show more enthusiasm," Nami scolded him, noting the sarcasm in his voice. "We have a housekeeper." Bippo was the only one who spoke, earning an angry glare from Nami. "Sorry," the bear quickly replied, cowering under her disapproving gaze. "Why are you apologizing so easily?" Nami was bewildered, shouting as she wondered why this talking bear was so quick to apologize just from her glare. Kuina sighed, wondering whether Nami was really seeing anyone as normal in this group. Luffy had now recruited this woman as a housekeeper, but it was clear he was teasing her while she clearly had her sights set on stealing their treasure. Nami couldn't decide who was worse among them. Luffy received no system notification, realizing that Nami hadn't genuinely joined the crew but had merely spoken in the heat of the moment. That's good. It means that everyone who has joined the crew has genuinely put their faith in our flag. Will you eventually put your faith in me and our crew, Nami? Luffy pondered internally, even as he looked at the girl in front of him. Now, while Lami and Bippo are getting the treasure, Yamato, Zoro, Kuina, and Nami, you should tie up all the pirates, including Buggy. Zoro, he's a devil fruit user, so I want you to lock him inside a reinforced barrel, as simply tying him up won't help much. Luffy said. Luffy could have purchased sea prism stone handcuffs in the systems store, but they were expensive, and he wanted to save money. Yes, Captain. Zoro replied, and everyone nodded in agreement. Well, almost everyone. Wait. Let me help collect the treasure. Nami exclaimed, earning dubious looks from all of them who were aware that her real intention was to steal the treasure. Luffy smiled at the woman, who was nicknamed Cat Burglar in the original series. No, you're the housekeeper now. I'll leave the treasure to the ship's doctor and the crew's assistant. Luffy said calmly. Wait. Nami was about to speak, but Luffy ignored her and continued. Shirahoshi, come with me. Let's visit the town so you can see how humans live on the surface. Luffy declared as he walked ahead. Yes, Luffy-sama. The excited mermaid followed her captain, eager to visit a human town for the first time. Megalo followed closely behind. Chapter 19, Orange Town 4. While the crew was organizing everything at the port related to the captured pirates, Luffy, Shirahoshi, and Megalo were walking through the empty town at the moment. So this is how a human town works? It's different, but it reminds me a lot of the houses on Fishman Island. The 1.70-meter-tall mermaid spoke, admiring the surroundings. I don't see much difference between humans and fishmen, to be honest. Apart from the respiratory system for breathing underwater, you seem to have the same physiological conditions as humans. Luffy said as he walked with the princess. Although I have no idea how mermaids reproduce. Luffy couldn't help but murmur as he curiously examined her tail. Sharky sharky. Megalo exclaimed while munching on some plants in a house's garden. That's not seaweed, Megalo. It's better to wait and eat it when we get back and have a big feast. Luffy warned him, as Megalo didn't seem to like the plants he had tried and promptly spat them out. Shishishishishii. Shirahoshi laughed alongside, amused by her finned friend's antics. Why is the town so empty? Did the bad men drive away the other humans? She innocently asked. Yes, unfortunately, that's how things work everywhere in the world. The strong prey on the weak. Luffy spoke calmly. What's that up ahead, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi said, looking a few dozen meters ahead, where there was a destroyed house. In front of it lay an injured dog with blood matted in its fur, lying on the ground amid the wreckage. Did this happen before I got here? Luffy commented to himself, a bit surprised, as he knew that in the original story, Mahdi's giant lion, Richie, destroyed the pet shop, and Chaochu fought back bravely. However, it seemed that this event occurred while he was on his way to the marine ship. It appears that with my presence in this world as the new Luffy, many things are changing, including characters with different genders and ages, as well as some events unfolding differently. It seems I can't rely on my previous knowledge anymore, or trust it too firmly. Luffy mumbled internally. What's wrong, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi couldn't help but ask when she heard Luffy speak softly. Nothing, princess. Let's go, that animal needs help if it's still alive. Luffy said as he hurried forward. Yes, Luffy-sama. The mermaid followed him closely. Upon reaching the scene, the first thing Luffy did was remove some debris from on top of the dog. Shirahoshi stood in shock, her hand over her mouth, seeing the animal in such a wretched state. Well, he's still alive, but he needs treatment quickly. Luffy said, speaking to no one in particular. He opened the system store and retrieved some healing fluids to prevent infection of the wounds at this moment. Luffy had no medical expertise, but he figured it was the basic step before having Lami, who would take care of fully healing the dog. Whoru, and what? What is that woman with a tail? A new voice appeared nearby. A shocked elderly man who had observed Luffy tending to Chaochu and had dropped a bottle near the injured animal. But he was even more astonished by the beauty of Shirahoshi, who had a pink tail instead of legs. He had no idea what a mermaid was in this world. Who are you, old man? Luffy asked, looking at the elderly man seriously. While he might know who this man was, Luffy knew he couldn't trust his canonical knowledge too much. The elderly man before him matched the anime's description, but he looked quite wretched now, injured, with a broken arm, and hanging on to a spear he was using as a makeshift crutch. This indicated that he had a tough fight before Luffy and the others arrived. I'm the mayor. I was fighting against Maji and his lion with this dog at my side, but we lost miserably. I woke up recently from the sound of a loud explosion. Are you responsible for that? What happened to Buggy the pirate? The mayor asked. That's terrible. Shirahoshi couldn't help but comment with a sad expression before Luffy spoke. We defeated them and intend to claim the bounty on their heads. Luffy said. So, you're bounty hunters? The mayor asked, somewhat relieved. No, we're pirates. Luffy said simply as he picked up Chaochu. What will you do with Chaochu? The mayor couldn't help but ask. Luffy turned to him and said. I'm going to recruit him into my crew, of course. Luffy smiled confidently after those words. What? Luffy-sama? Sharky? Quiet down, Megalo, you're not much different. Luffy couldn't help but grumble in response to the shark, who was breathing outside the water. A shark that can fly and breathe oxygen? The man had huge eyes, much like Shirahoshi, after hearing about Megalo. This old man is quite clueless. Luffy exclaimed internally. What's the use of those glasses, old man, if you can't even see a shark flying next to us since the moment you saw us? Luffy mumbled. You say that as if it's normal. The mayor exclaimed indignantly. In any case, Luffy returned from his stroll with the mermaid to the pirate camp that Buggy's crew had set up, half of which had been destroyed. At the same time, an old man followed Luffy, wanting answers about why he was taking his friend's dog. Old man, I'm not going to force him, but I'm confident he'll come with us. Luffy said simply before meeting the others. You finally came back. Kuina said, watching him arrive with the others. I see you've finished everything here. Luffy commented, surveying the area. There were tied-up bandits in one corner, still unconscious, a giant lion with the man who tamed it, and the swordsman from Buggy's crew in another. Meanwhile, a chest was constantly bouncing beside Zoro. Release me. You have felt the wrath of Buggy. They could hear the muffled voice of the clown inside the object. Ha 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 ha. Good job. Luffy praised them with a small laugh. There were quite a few treasures on their ships as well. Lami said, raising 2 bags filled with them, while a woman with orange hair stared at the bags with dollar signs in her eyes and drool dripping from her mouth. Good job. Thank you, Captain. I'm sorry. Ignoring the bear's apology, Luffy brought Chaochu to Lami. Can you take care of him? Lami looked at the dog's condition and nodded. Of course. Leaving Chaochu with Lami, Luffy walked over to the treasures. A girl was still gazing greedily at the bags, her eyes shimmering with the thought of all the money. Zoro looked at her with disbelief, wondering if she had any idea what she was doing in front of everyone. Before the girl could react, Luffy moved next to her and touched the bags. The treasures vanished instantly. You've added 10 million Baileys to the system store. What? Where's the treasure? What did you do to them? Nami cried out in shock, as if someone had taken a child from its mother right in front of her. The treasure has been stored in the crew's funds. He simply said. The others who witnessed it simply thought that Luffy had shrunk the valuable items, as he hadn't explained the system yet. Sighing and ignoring a very desperate Nami by his side, questioning what he had done, Luffy turned to the rest of his crew, who were now paying attention to their captain. Chapter 20, Orange Town 5. Is he going to be alright? The mayor asked as he inspected the dog being bandaged by Lami's side. Yes, old man, You've asked that 12 times already. Worry about yourself and don't bother me anymore. Lami was irritated with the old man, who was now wearing a cast on his broken arm but still concerned about the dog that the captain had asked her to take care of. After that, seeing that her job was done here, she turned to her captain. Now we need to go over our next steps, Luffy announced, so she stepped back to see what Luffy had planned for them. Arriving at a quieter spot, away from the screams coming from Buggy in the barrel, the crew formed a circle to listen to Luffy speak in the middle of it. First, we took some treasures from these pirates, but it's not enough, he said calmly. That's why I also want the bounty on their heads. As soon as he said these words, everyone looked confused. But we're pirates. I doubt the Marines would give us money, even if we turn in a pirate with a price on their head, Zoro said curiously. You're right, Zoro, I wouldn't be surprised if there's already a bounty on my head after I killed a Marine commander, took over a Marine base, and stole one of their ships, Luffy said calmly. But apart from Zoro and me, they have no knowledge of you guys, as hardly anyone here has been seen by the Marines as part of our pirate crew, Luffy reasoned and continued. In that sense, I'm going to have Lami and Papu set up near a Marine base to turn in these men. They'll be known as bounty hunters, exchanging the heads of the pirates we capture on our journey until we leave this sea. Lami understood Luffy's reasoning and nodded. Before she could ask about their next meeting point, Luffy continued, noticing her evident confusion. Don't worry about that, Yamato here will make vivre cards for us, so we can find each other anytime using them, Luffy said, raising some eyebrows while most of them didn't understand what he was talking about. Ah, this. Great idea, my Luffy, Yamato said with a smile, as she could create vivre cards. Vivre cards? Kuina asked, looking puzzled, as she wasn't aware of their existence. Also known as life cards, made from a part of someone's body, typically their fingernails, they move toward the person they represent no matter where you are in the world. They also represent the user's life, and if it starts to burn, it means the original person is nearing death. If the paper disappears in flames, it means the person has died. Lami explained calmly, earning many surprised looks. Kuina, Zoro, Nami, and even Shirahoshi had no knowledge of this. So I'm going to turn in Buggy's crew for their bounty and then we'll meet again with the paper, right? Lami asked. Exactly, that way you'll become our unofficial bounty hunter, Luffy said with a smile, and Nami could be seen with dollar signs replacing her eyes at this idea. After planning how they would do this, Luffy turned his attention to Chaochu, who had awakened as they discussed their plans. Nami was the only one who stayed quiet in the group. Yo, Chaochu. Luffy greeted the bandaged dog beside the mayor after separating from his group, and the elderly man hadn't left the dog's side all this time. Oh. The white-furred dog, one of their saviors, barked. Luffy-sama, do you really plan to recruit the dog? Shirahoshi asked from the side with a happy look, as the dog had survived. What? He intends to recruit a dog? Lami exclaimed comically when she heard this. Yeah. Both Kuina, Zoro, Vippo, and Nami exclaimed in unison. Ha 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 ha. He seems to be quite strong, Yamato commented enthusiastically. Look at him, he's just an ordinary injured dog. Nami made a comical face as she shouted in disbelief at both the captain and the vice captain of the group. Oh. Chaochu didn't seem too happy about what was being said about him. Hey, buddy, calm down, let's talk, okay? Luffy said calmly as he heard everything the dog was saying. Wait, can you talk to him? Zoro couldn't help but ask with a raised eyebrow. I don't know why, but yes, I can. I can't understand Megalo, but I can hear what Chaochu is trying to say, Luffy said, scratching his head in this dilemma. Without the voice of all things, which is still locked, I can say that maybe it's due to my mythical zone form, as in its final form. Despite having the body of a human with horns and wings, I also have a face that resembles a pit bull. This is amazing, Luffy-sama. I can't understand him very well, unlike Megalo. Sharky. Megalo says he can understand Chaochu-sama too, Shirahoshi said again. I see. Anyway, I'm going to talk to him. Luffy went to the injured dog and began to speak with him quietly in the corner. To the onlookers, it appeared that Luffy was talking to the dog as if it were a person, and the dog was responding with barks. Whisper oh. Whisper oh. Whisper oh. Oh. That's great, Luffy exclaimed happily after some time. While almost everyone was stunned by what was happening, the mayor standing nearby was conflicted. What's going on here? Zoro exclaimed, looking lost. Ha ha ha, we have a new crewmate right now. Luffy celebrated in front of everyone as he stood up. With the exception of Yamato, who had enhanced hearing and observation haki, the conversation was a mystery to all the others. Don't look at me like that, I just told him to join us. I'd help him get stronger. He lost the only precious thing to him, the store of his former owner, so he felt quite helpless. I offered my help to make him stronger so he never has to feel like that again, and to have the adventures he can have on our ship. Luffy spoke with a smile. I understand, and what about him having a harem of female dogs? Yamato asked, confused in front of everyone. Don't mention that. Luffy shouted with a bit of embarrassment when she brought that up. Oh. Don't agree with her. Everyone looking at this scenario face-palmed. This captain is really crazy. Offering a harem to a dog so that he can join the crew? They all exclaimed in their minds. I didn't exactly offer that directly, I just said he could get power, fame, and some female dogs in adventures on my ship. Luffy lamented internally. Anyway, let's get ready to set sail, we have more islands to visit. Luffy ordered, and a part of the crew started dragging the prisoners onto the marine ship. Meanwhile, Luffy went to Buggy's ship and shrank it to fit in his pocket. Would Kaya buy this ship? Luffy wondered as he stored the ship in his pocket. Once everything was ready, they began to head back to the marine ship with all the loot and prisoners. As they boarded the marine ship, they heard a voice from the direction of the island. Hey! You better take good care of Chaochu, or I'll come after you at sea. The mayor shouted from the port as they started to set sail. Don't worry, old man, the next news you'll hear about this dog will be his wanted poster. Luffy replied, placing his hat on his head. As if a dog would get a wanted poster. The mayor shouted comically. Goodbye, mayor. See you next time. Luffy smiled at the only old man on the dock. Oh. Chaochu was next to him, not forgetting to say goodbye. Now, what's the plan? Lamy asked. Let's head toward the island of Syrup Village. I don't know the exact direction because the marine map is confusing, but I have a way to get to the location. Doesn't anyone here know how to navigate? Nami muttered unconsciously. Wait a moment. You don't have a navigator on the ship? Nami asked out loud in surprise, wanting to apply for the position since she was just a maid here, and while trying to steal from them, a better position would present a better opportunity. Luffy had a playful gleam in his eyes when he heard this. Why would I need a navigator when I have Zoro? Luffy teased Nami while pointing at Zoro. Zoro? Me? Zoro was also confused. Of course, pay attention. Zoro, where is Syrup Village? Do you know? Luffy asked Zoro directly. I believe it's that way, Captain. Zoro thought for a moment, scratching his chin, and finally pointed in a direction. You see? Bippo, go to the helmsman and turn the ship in the opposite direction of where Zoro pointed. Ha 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 shar 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 shar. Zizi. I'm sorry. Hey. This isn't funny. Zoro turned red as everyone was laughing at him. Chapter 21, Trip to Syrup Village. After 2 days in the middle of the ocean, a marine ship was anchored in the waters, while Luffy used the power of his devil fruit to slow down the ship, almost coming to a stop. Next to the marine ship, there was a smaller and peculiar boat. What is this? Yamato couldn't help but ask in amazement. This is a speedboat. Luffy said proudly. He purchased it using the system, taking an existing model in this world and adding a few modifications. The young man with the straw hat used his money from the shop system to buy and assemble a steam-powered speedboat. What's a speedboat, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi looked curiously at the small, peculiar boat with an engine at the back. This is a small motorized boat that can move faster than most boats in this world. It will be a secondary boat for the crew, mainly used by Lamy as she delivers the heads of the pirates we captured while we were here in the East Blue. Luffy explained proudly. Incredible. Yamato exclaimed with starry eyes. You don't even know what a motor is. Lamy said from the side, thinking that the tall woman with horns was missing a few screws in her head. Luffy had an appreciative look for Lamy at this moment. Although the concept of a motor wasn't new to this world, as they had a sea train in Water 7, for most people, it was strange and unfamiliar. Lamy in the original story had a damn submarine-like law, so it's no surprise that she's the only one who has an idea of what a motor is. Anyway, I'll teach Lamy and Bippo how to operate the speedboat with the fuel now. Please wait for me to finish before we continue our journey. I said, jumping onto the boat, with Lamy and Bippo following me. But first of all, where did you get all of this? Did you already have it in your pocket? Lamy asked, curious. It was a recurring question among the crew, but everyone inclined to the idea that Luffy had these things before they met him, and he had simply shrunk them and kept them until the occasion. No, I got these with the money we obtained from Buggy. It's pretty hard to explain right now, so I'll do it another time. Let's focus on the boat's operation for now. Luffy planned to talk about the concept of the shop later, now he had other concerns. While Luffy explained the concept and the manual of the speedboat, on the marine ship, everyone was looking at that strange, small motorized boat. A woman with orange hair was standing beside them. She was dressed as a French maid, nothing too sensual, but she had her own uniform, like Baby 5. She held a mop in her hand, squeezing it tightly, with veins popping on her head. "I'm a maid? A maid?" Nami was furious with her fate in the midst of all these pirates, as her role was to clean the ship and attend to the captain's requests. First, he doesn't see me as a navigator and brings me into his crew as a maid. Now he's making me wear this uniform and asking me to keep cleaning the ship. Damn you, Luffy, you're lucky you hid all that gold, but I'll find it. I'll take it along with the reward you'll receive from Buggy. Nami was furious at first, but soon had a malicious smile at the prospect of getting all that money from this crew. So, I'll keep cleaning the place until I get that money. She was determined as she resumed her task with a rather happy demeanor, which left everyone who knew her intentions quite concerned as the maid cleaned with a scary smile. After explaining everything, Luffy summoned a raft to be pulled by the speedboat with Buggy's crew tied together on it. "With this, I believe you can go. Take my Vivre card and come to us when you're done," Luffy said, taking a paper from his pocket and handing it to Nami, who accepted it. "Okay, see you later, Captain." She smiled. In the beginning, Nami had some grievances with Luffy, and they still had some differences, but over the days, they were building some kind of relationship between them, despite a few jokes back and forth. "Remember, don't use your devil fruit powers too easily. My grandfather is already coming after me, and if the headquarters finds out about the potential of the people around me, they'll try to send more forces here. Not that it would scare me if it happened, but I want to delay it as much as possible while we're in the sea." She nodded in understanding. "Then, see you later," Luffy said with a nod, not taking his eyes off the emo-styled woman. After a few seconds, he turned to the bear beside him, who wore his orange jumpsuit, one that Luffy bought in the shop, as it belonged to the canonical Bippo without a pirate symbol. "You too, Bippo, take care and keep this emo here out of trouble." Luffy smiled. "Who's emo?" Nami yelled. "Yes, Captain," Bippo said, saluting with his hand on his forehead, mimicking a military salute. "So, I'm off." Luffy jumped onto the marine ship, while Nami started the coal-powered engines and began to move away from the ship with the raft full of clown-dressed prisoners begging to be set free. "Now, let's continue our journey. Our sharpshooter with a long nose is waiting for us," Luffy announced as the ship resumed sailing in the direction they were heading. For the rest of the day, Luffy trained them with his powers, but this didn't include Nami. Luffy wasn't naive to her real intentions here, as was almost everyone else on the crew. He was just toying with the cat burglar. Even though he needed a navigator, seeing her cleaning the ship with a uniform was too much fun. She would grumble when she broke her broom or the dustpan after realizing her own situation in anger. "Nami, you've broken another broom. You owe me 50 Baileys now," Luffy exclaimed, enjoying himself, while Nami had a dead look as she saw herself either further in debt or losing money, no matter how insignificant 50 Baileys might be. As for not training the cat burglar yet, Luffy wanted to see how she would fare on her journey. He wasn't like the canon Luffy to forgive that betrayal so easily. He wanted to test the waters with Nami before making a decision, even though he would appreciate it if she came to ask for help in dealing with Arlong without stealing from him. "The sun is so warm and nice," Shirahoshi commented. "Nami, get some orange juice for me, Yamato, and Shirahoshi?" A shirtless Luffy in flowery shorts asked, as he and Kaido's daughter in a beautiful white bikini, and a serious woman sat side by side, sunbathing on chairs in the middle of the ship. Each of them wore sunglasses to enjoy the moment. Meanwhile, Chao Chu was on the mast like a lookout or guard dog, and Zoro and Kuina were still training, swinging a piece of wood, which increased in weight multiple times. "Sharky!" A disgruntled Megalo barked from the side of the mermaid, who was on another chair. "Oh, I forgot, one for Megalo too," Luffy quickly said apologetically. While they enjoyed their time relaxing at sea after their intense training, Nami had to comply with the captain's request. "Of course," Nami replied, gritting her teeth. She despised everything about the situation, but it was necessary to get her precious gold. "Thanks, maid," Luffy commented with a smile. "Thank you, Nami." "Thank you, maid-sama." "Sharky." Everyone expressed their gratitude. "You're welcome." Nami smiled with closed eyes but had visible veins on her forehead as she tried to hide her anger. She began to walk in a stiff and squared manner as her unmasked rage consumed her, heading toward the marine ship's kitchen. She pretends so poorly. How did she manage to steal from all those pirates? Luffy couldn't help but wonder internally as he watched her walk away from the group. Woof! Woof! Everyone heard barking from the mast, and Luffy understood what it meant. "It seems Chaochu's spotted land," Luffy commented with a sigh. Anyway, it didn't take much more than a day after Nami separated from the group for the ship to see the village of Syrup in the distance. Chapter 22, Syrup Village 01. With the ship arriving at a deserted beach on the island, Luffy asked Zoro to steer the helm in a straight line and let the sand naturally slow down the ship. As the sand rose with the impact of the marine ship, it came to a halt, and the rest of the crew descended using a ramp placed on the side of the ship. A ship shouldn't come to a beach, as it would get stuck in the sand. But this rule didn't apply to Luffy. He gently touched the ship, and as soon as everyone disembarked, the captain used his power on the massive 30-meter-long object. More fruit model, amplify human devil fruit, mass, reduce by 0.001 times. The ship obediently transformed into a small object in the palm of Luffy's hand, reducing from 3,000 centimeters to 3. What? Darn, I said that too loudly. Luffy, as he held the ship, heard a surprised shout, and his crew's reaction was no different as they all looked up at some rocks on a hill beside the beach. Come out from where you are. Luffy said seriously but had a playful glint in his eyes. You're not Marines? You don't look like Marines. The voice from the other side shouted with an alarm tone, without revealing its face. No, we're pirates. Luffy calmly said, and before the person on the other side could respond, some of his companions commented with curiosity. Incredible. A talking rock, the surface is so full of possibilities. Shirahoshi exclaimed, fascinated, as she looked at the rocks on the hill. Sharky. Sharky. Woof. Woof. Both animals believed Shirahoshi's words. The sea is even stranger outside of Wano. Yamato commented on the side since the rock was beyond the reach of her observation hockey. Are you all really believing this? Zoro lost his composure at this, while the other girls, Nami and Kuina, had defeated looks at the naivety of the two other women. Ha ha ha. Luffy laughed, and even he lost his composure at that moment, finding it hilarious. Anyway, I'm going to face these 8 million. As he said these words, wings began to sprout from his back, and he flew toward that hill. What is this? He can FLY? He's not human. Run. Luffy heard a collective shout from the kids as he approached. Luffy landed on the rock and, on the other side, saw a young long-nosed man with 3 other children prepared to raise some poor flags. As soon as they saw him, the kids dropped the flags and ran toward the village, leaving the long-nosed man behind, who looked at Luffy as if he was going to die at that moment. Yo. Luffy greeted with a smile. Ah, are you going to kill me? Usopp asked in fear. Of course not. I came to recruit you. Luffy said. Huh? Recruit? Usopp was stunned by this man who had barely arrived and spoke these words as if it were something normal. Yes, I believe you have potential. How about joining my crew? Luffy asked with a smile. Boom, is this our new crew member? Yamato appeared at the side, startling Usopp even more. Is he strong? Yamato couldn't help but comment, scratching her chin. It's clear that he's strong. I'm a brave warrior of the sea, the strongest with my fleet of 8 million pirates. Usopp gained courage with Yamato's comment and spoke his delusions out loud. Really? Yamato asked, amazed, looking for the other 8 million people under Usopp's command. Luffy just sighed at that. He's lying, Yamato. This island can't fit that many people to begin with. Luffy said calmly. Caught in the lie, Usopp started to sweat. Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi arrived at the scene flying. A woman with a tail who can float? Usopp exclaimed with comical eyes when he saw the princess. He had heard of a mermaid but didn't know the exact description. Shirahoshi, cover your tail with the dress I gave you, so you don't attract too much attention. Luffy said calmly. Yes, Luffy-sama. She obeyed, lowering the dress to cover her tail. Wasn't there more shouting here? Nami asked, inspecting Usopp and the area since she hadn't seen the children shouting and running. By this point, everyone had already surrounded a scared Usopp. Only a boy. Did he get lost? Sharky. Woof. Who are you? Usopp asked, still cautious about the presence of these strange people and animals who suddenly appeared. We're the Straw Hat Pirates. Luffy led the conversation. And what do you want here? We want to sell a ship. I heard there's a shipbuilding company here, so we came to this island. Luffy explained. Yes, there is one, I know the owner, but you're not here to cause trouble, are you? Usopp asked, still cautious. We're pirates, we do what we want. But we're not here to loot towns and villages. That's beneath us. Luffy said seriously. But then, since you're a brave warrior of the sea, why don't you join me and my crew? I need a good sniper, and you look like you might be one of the good ones? Luffy asked again. Of course I am. But why do you want that? Usopp looked at him incredulously since he knew deep down that he was weak, and no one expected much from him. Because you have potential, and I know your father. Luffy said simply. My father, really? You know my father? Usopp couldn't be more shocked. Of course, His captain gave me this hat. How about joining me on my adventures and finding him later? I can make you even stronger than your old man," Luffy proposed. "I don't know." In the end, Usopp didn't agree, as it was all too sudden, and he had his life in this village, no matter how much his heart longed for adventures on the vast and unknown sea. Even looking at this unique group he never imagined seeing in front of him, he wanted to say yes deep down, but he was afraid of the unknown and was still attached to this place. However, he didn't reject Luffy's offer either. Luffy saw this and hoped to change his mind as he stayed on this island. Chapter 23, Syrup Village 02. Anyway, why don't you show us where this shipbuilding company is? I want to make some money with the ship we have. Luffy changed the subject, as he expected from Usopp. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Usopp finally stood up from the ground, where he had been since he got scared when Luffy grew wings. Wait a moment. How did you make that ship disappear? Or how do you have wings? Usopp yelled, now recalling all the strange things that had happened. How does she have a tail? How is there a flying shark? He couldn't stop shouting with his scared voice. No one immediately answered. Nami was curious as well. She didn't have the courage to ask too many questions but really wanted an answer to all the strange things this crew could do. About me, I'm a devil fruit user. Luffy said calmly. I thought those were just legends. Nami exclaimed. Did you not find it strange when Buggy split in my lure, maid? Luffy asked incredulously. I was so stunned that I didn't even notice. Nami protested, growling when Luffy called her by her current occupation. Usopp was stunned, trying to imagine a fight with people with strange powers, something that left him internally terrified. As for Shirahoshi, she's a mermaid, so it's normal for her to have a tail. Haha. Luffy laughed and continued. Her companion is Megalo, he's a very special shark. Sharky. And that woman with horns? How can there be so many different people in just one place? Usopp couldn't help but exclaim as well at the giant and peculiar appearance of Yamato. Isn't that normal? We're a pirate crew. Luffy announced with a smile. That's not normal. Usopp, Nami, Kuina, and Zoro shouted at the same time. Ha 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 ha. How funny. Yamato spoke with a smile while laughing at the faces of the four. But anyway, can we go now? Luffy asked, and in the end, Usopp nodded, seeing that this group didn't seem to be evil, just very strange and with personalities he never imagined. Great, let's go, everyone. Luffy said, following Usopp as everyone started to follow him. It didn't take long for them to enter the village, passing through the streets. They soon attracted a lot of attention with their group. Hey, isn't that Usopp? But who are those accompanying him? Some villagers suspected as the group passed through the city streets. What beautiful women. I've never seen such beauty. Yamato and Shirahoshi attracted a lot of attention, both from men and women. Isn't that a Jolly Roger with a straw hat drawn behind the cloak of that tattooed man? Pirates? What? What are pirates doing here, and Usopp is with them? Soon everything turned into a tumult, while Usopp was getting nervous about the gossip. His reputation was already not good among the people in this village, and now they were associating him with pirates. Luffy and the others didn't seem to care much, except for Nami, who didn't like pirates, especially when being called one. Anyway, they passed through the village and headed toward the large mansion near the port, on a hill. As they approached the gate, a butler who looked very much like a human ram was watering the flowers in the garden next to a blonde young lady sunbathing in a chair. Usopp and... Who are these? Mary stopped watering his plants as he noticed Usopp coming with a group of very unusual people and some animals following them. Mary? Can you call Kaya? Usopp asked the butler directly. Usopp? Before Mary could respond, Kaya had already left her chair to see her storyteller friend. Hello, Kaya? I brought them here because I had some business with you. They said they wanted to sell a ship, so I guided them. Usopp said. And who are your friends? Open the gate, Mary. Kaya asked, turning her attention back to the strange group, who entered the gate as soon as Mary opened it. A green-haired man with 3 swords at his waist, 4 women, including one with a sword, another dressed as a maid with an unsatisfied face as she walked alongside them, a woman with a smile on her face holding a heavy weapon, almost 3 meters tall with red horns and a yellow base, incredibly beautiful, just like the other woman with pink hair and an innocent face, wearing a dress and walking in a strange way, almost as if she were flying and pretending to walk. There was a furry dog with a flying shark using a bubble of air around his waist, seemingly well out of the water. And finally, there was a tall, tattooed man dressed as a pirate, who smiled at Kaya, as he appeared to be the group's leader. Hello, I'm Monkey D. Luffy, captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. Luffy said confidently, earning a surprised look from the two in front of him. A captain of a pirate crew? Mary spoke alarmed and a little frightened. And what does a pirate want with me? Kaya asked, now a bit cautious. Simple, I came to sell a ship that I acquired through the spoils of another pirate group. Do you buy ships? Luffy asked calmly. About that. What is happening here? A new voice was heard at the scene, preventing Kaya from giving Luffy an answer. Everyone turned to see a man approaching in a suit, adjusting his glasses. Claador! Kaya exclaimed. What filthy pirates are doing in this place? He said with a look of disgust. Luffy didn't pay much attention to it, except for some internal amusement. Zoro had a sharp look, and Shirahoshi looked a bit frightened by these words. Arf! Arf! Chaochu didn't like this at all and barked at the man, showing his teeth. They brought their ma too. The black-haired butler continued to comment, earning an even more intense growl from the dog. Wait, they just came to sell a ship. Usopp said hurriedly before any misunderstandings occurred. Sell a ship? Have you not read the news? This group attacked a marine base and killed its commander a few days ago. Claador said, showing two wanted posters, one of Luffy with a fierce look and shirtless next to the headless body of Morgan, and the other of Zoro tied to a post, with Luffy having a bounty of 10 million, and Zoro with 5 million. Is this real? Did you really attack a marine base? Kaya asked in disbelief. It's true, we're pirates after all. Luffy didn't even try to deny it, he really didn't care if he was called a demon, he was doing what he wanted, regardless of others' opinions. Usopp was in conflict now, he had just realized that he brought dangerous pirates to Kaya. Anyway, I'm here for business. If you don't want to do business, we'll leave. Luffy said without laughter now, speaking calmly. How can a lowlife like you do business at this shipbuilding company? Claador said with a disgusted tone. Isn't his guy caring about his disguise, is he? Luffy commented internally. Even though Luffy had shown a strength of 10 million, Kuro should still have to use some of his skills here to defeat a low-level pirate crew, and his disguise as a butler would soon be questioned. And you, the usual liar from the village. Without finishing what he was saying, Claador pointed at Usopp this time. Have you brought dangerous pirates close to the lady? Have you lost your mind? I expected more, even from someone of your kind. He said with disdain. Wait, Claador, Usopp. When Kaya was about to defend Usopp, the butler interrupted her. You have to understand, miss, that he has brought danger to you here. This kind of scum always attracts others like him. It's no wonder your father is a bum on the sea. My father is. Usopp shouted angrily this time but couldn't finish. Pirate. Claador interrupted again. In other words, a lower-level scum, just like you and your little gang here. He said, adjusting his glasses again. While everyone was stunned by these events, suddenly, laughter brought everyone out of this stupor. They turned their gazes to Luffy. Ha 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 ha. Luffy began to laugh loudly, much to everyone's surprise. What a funny guy. Ha 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 ha. I'm sorry for this, but I can't help it anymore. Ha 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 ha. My Luffy? Luffy-sama? Sharky? Wolf? Has he gone mad? Nami said unhappily. She didn't like how the dark-haired butler had treated them, and now hearing Luffy laugh made her even more displeased. What's so funny, pirate scum? You better get out of here and never come back with the rest of your ilk, otherwise, we'll call the Marines. Claador said seriously, not liking the mockery made by this young man. Ha 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 ha. I just can't help but exclaim, you seem like a clueless man, not even knowing how grand his father is. He may be a pirate, but he's much better than being a butler in a village in the East Blue. Luffy smiled at him with a dangerous glint. Luffy. Usopp couldn't help but mutter as he listened to this. Mary and Kaya were still shocked by everything happening. But anyway, I don't care about your opinion, I'm a pirate, after all. But since you're so bold in insulting me, my crew, and even my future crew member here. Luffy pointed to a stunned and cowering Usopp at his side. Prepare yourself for the consequences. Luffy simply said, a sadistic smile forming on his face, and then he disappeared from the spot. Without time to react, the black-haired butler suddenly felt a sharp, intense pain in his stomach as a powerful punch was delivered, burying itself in that part of his body, causing him to recoil like a ragdoll. Boom! His body flew like a rocket, crashing into one of the mansion's walls. Chapter 24, Syrup Village 03. That. As the only thing they managed to comment on in the face of these sudden and unexpected events, Yamato was the quickest to react and equally surprised, just like the entire Straw Hat crew. Their captain, who had only come here to deliver a pirate ship to get some Baileys from Buggy's ship, was equally surprised by what followed. A butler who appeared suddenly started to insult them. This was followed by their captain punching the arrogant man without giving him a chance to react. Luffy stepped into the spot where the butler had been and began to walk towards the wreckage caused by his punch and the man's body. Despite the noise of destruction, everyone was still frozen in place by these sudden actions. As he walked towards the destroyed area, an arrogant smile began to spread on Luffy's face. In the wreckage, there was Claador with torn clothes, broken glasses, disheveled hair, and coughing up blood as he tried to breathe on the ground. He glared at Luffy, filled with hatred, as Luffy approached him. "What's wrong? Surprised? You already know my history. Did you think I'd reward you for insulting me and my crew?" Luffy asked arrogantly, raising an eyebrow. "Wait, don't hurt him. Call the guards. Make him stop." Kaya, coming out of her stunned state, said hurriedly, watching Luffy approach Claador with terror. "Girl, you're too naive. Do you think I'll let this slide after hearing those words?" Luffy taunted her, not revealing the man's true identity, as he wanted to play with him first. Especially after the man thought he could be arrogant with him and his people. After ignoring her, before Kaya, Claador, or almost anyone present could react, except Yamato, Luffy disappeared again. Ah! Without time to react, Claador received a kick from Luffy, sending him flying a few more meters as he screamed in pain. "What's the matter? Is that all you've got?" Luffy taunted as he appeared by his side again. With another punch directly to his face, his nose was broken when he hadn't even fallen from the last blow. Boom. His body demolished another part of the mansion. "You wretch, you'll pay for." Claador said in the midst of the wreckage while his face was like a bloody pulp. But before he finished his threat, Luffy appeared before him and grabbed his neck before he could react. "Would you like to see this?" Luffy smiled sadistically and, with his hand on Kuro's neck, began running and dragging his head along the wall, rubbing his face as he destroyed everything in his path with his head. Everyone watched in horror, even their crew was tense. Shirahoshi and Nami were the most frightened. Everyone watched in horror, even their crew was tense. Shirahoshi and Nami were the most frightened. "What's wrong? Is that all you've got?" Luffy taunted as he raised a swollen face by the neck. It no longer resembled the butler from moments ago. That face couldn't even speak anymore, it was the complete opposite of what it was moments ago. "Let me help you fix this," Luffy said, giving 2 open-handed slaps to that face. Slap. Slap. The sound of the slaps echoed strongly throughout the area, horrifying all the onlookers. Kuro was unconscious by this point, the slaps had been so strong that he collapsed. "How can you say you're helping by giving those slaps?" Everyone thought inwardly. What's happening here? At that moment, guards began to appear in the midst of this commotion, but they quickly became alarmed by all the destruction he had caused while holding Claador by the neck in one hand. "Don't worry, I'm done here," Luffy said as he tossed what was left of Kuro, as if he had spat out a terrible mouthful. He passed by a frantic Kaya, who ran towards her butler, and went to his still stunned crew. "Go away and never come back here." "Never." Luffy could hear Kaya looking at him with hatred, but he paid no attention to it. "You heard them, let's go," Luffy said with a small ironic smile, snapping everyone out of their stupor. "Usopp, you too, I don't think you're welcome here anymore," Luffy said to the long-nosed one, who looked at Kaya after these words. He saw her taking care of Claador but occasionally glancing at Luffy and even at him with anger in her eyes. Swallowing hard, Usopp followed Luffy out of the mansion, feeling a bit guilty for what had happened. No one said anything during their walk. Instead of passing through the village, they took another path. As they reached another deserted beach, Luffy stopped walking, causing the others to stop as well. Luffy stared at the empty sea horizon for a while without saying anything. Nami couldn't stand the silence any longer and broke it with a loud shout. "What was all that about? Why did you attack him like that? You nearly killed him. No matter how arrogant he was, you can't hurt someone like that just because of words." Luffy didn't respond to Nami's shouting, nor did he turn to face his crew while still gazing out to sea. "That guy," Nami snarled, while the rest of the group remained silent. "I think I'm leaving," Usopp suddenly said in the midst of the new silence. He had followed the group because he hadn't had much choice, but now he had many bitter thoughts, especially since it seemed that his friendship with Kaya had came to an end. "Wait, Usopp, you shouldn't leave yet." Luffy finally spoke and turned around, revealing a solemn smile. Usopp was surprised by this. "I told you I wanted you on my crew, didn't I?" Luffy said, his smile leaving everyone here stunned again, not understanding their captain's actions. "Of course, from what I've seen so far, you were a coward back there, but I'm giving you a chance to earn it," Luffy said, continuing. "In the next few days, you'll train with me and my team. After that, you'll have to defeat a pirate on your own and prove your worth." "What are you talking about? I didn't say I was joining your crew," Usopp said, a bit angrily. "Ah, you may not join it, but you'll definitely want to defeat this pirate." Luffy said, taking a low-cost wanted poster from the shop and opening it in front of all of them. This? Everyone was stunned when they saw Kuro's wanted poster in Luffy's hands. Wanted, Kuro of the 100 Clans, Captain of the Black Cat Pirates. Reward, 16 million Baileys. Dead or Alive, Chapter 25, Syrup Village 04. On the beach near Syrup Village, Luffy stood in front of his entire crew and Usopp, holding up a wanted poster he had obtained through a point. He had collected thousands of wanted posters, but this one was special. It featured Kuro, a pirate who was believed to be dead. Did you say this pirate Kuro was actually the butler Claddor all along? Usopp asked in disbelief. Are you sure he's not his brother? Yamato inquired. No, it's him all along. I had some information that he was hiding on this island for a while, and I confirmed it today. The idiot had the audacity to openly insult us just because I have a bounty of 10 million Baileys, lower than his, but I bet after the beating I gave him, he won't be getting out of bed for the next 3 days. Luffy said with a grin. But even so, Kaya is in danger. Usopp exclaimed. Then it's your duty to save her, Usopp. Luffy said calmly. Me? Usopp asked, astounded. He might have seen Luffy defeat Kuro with ease, but he knew he wasn't a monster like that straw-hatted man. Yes, to be honest, I saw you insulting her just like your own father, while you kept quiet. I thought you were a brave sea warrior. But what I saw was just a coward. Luffy's smile faded, and he looked seriously at Usopp. Usopp was taken aback by this. He never expected someone to call out his true personality in such a critical moment, making him lower his head in shame. Nami was the first to speak up in her maid outfit. Luffy-sama, you don't need to. Shirahoshi as well was about to comment. Please, I'm just a maid. Silence. Luffy said sternly, and they fell silent. I admit, I was tempted to recruit you, but I was disappointed with what I saw, making me wonder if you're really your father's son. And no, Usopp, I won't help her because she herself banished me from her place. I have nothing to do with her if her life is in danger now. Luffy spoke indifferently, which made Usopp even more cower in the face of this reality, thinking that he would watch Kaya die without being able to do anything. But, I can help you get stronger. Luffy continued. You can? Usopp asked incredulously. Yes, but it won't be easy. I'll make you experience hell on earth if you want. But at least you'll have a chance to face Kuro. What do you say? We might have 3 days before he starts his plans. Do you really want this? Luffy didn't change his serious tone, making everyone wonder what they had done to their captain and who stood in front of them, as Luffy had never been so serious with them. The long-nosed young man contemplated Luffy's words and stood up to face the man over 2 meters tall with determination. I want it. Make me strong to protect Kaya. Usopp finally spoke with determination, and Luffy smiled at that. That's the first step. Now let's start your hellish training. Luffy said with a mischievous grin, even releasing some of his own power, causing his eyes to glow and purple flames to surround his body, which frightened Usopp and the others. Your first training will be to get used to the feeling of facing death. Maybe that will make you less of a coward. Luffy spoke as he exerted pressure. Usopp was scared and intimidated as he shrank back from Luffy. He began to wonder if he had made the right decision when he agreed to train with this pirate. The rest of the day, Usopp didn't have an easy moment and it would only get much harder the next day. The following morning, Usopp found himself in an open field on the outskirts of Syrup Village, with the east blue sun shining brightly in the sky. Luffy and Usopp stood a certain distance apart, surveying the scene before them. Usopp held an unfamiliar object in his hand, a new type of weapon he had never used before. But under Luffy's guidance, it was the weapon that would accompany him on their adventures. The field was filled with improvised targets that Luffy had acquired through the system, from high-quality equipment to empty cans and thin branches hanging from ropes. Luffy explained to Usopp. To become a skilled sniper, you need to enhance your accuracy, speed, and reaction. Let's start with precise shots. The goal is to hit those targets with surgical precision. Usopp nodded, focusing on the nearest target. He took a deep breath, stabilized his stance, and aimed with determination. Then, he fired. Bang! The ammunition flew at a surprising speed, hitting the central target with a satisfying metallic sound. Usopp smiled at the accuracy of his first shot. Luffy applauded Usopp's effort. Well done, Usopp. Now, try to hit that moving target. He pointed to a swinging target. Usopp focused once again, tracking the moving target with his aim. He waited for the right moment and released the bullet. It flew through the air and struck the moving target, making it stop swinging. Usopp smiled, feeling more confident in his shooting. Luffy continued to train him, adding challenges such as shooting at multiple targets and high-pressure situations. As the hours passed, Usopp became more comfortable with his new weapon, improving his skills and reactions. Luffy also emphasized the importance of concentration and breath control. As the training progressed, Usopp became more skilled and confident in his shooting abilities. He realized that with dedication and proper guidance, he could become an exceptional sniper like his father, according to Luffy's descriptions. Gradually, he began to pave the way to becoming the sniper his crew needed. The scene of training, with targets being accurately hit and the east blue sun shining in Usopp's eyes as he devoted himself to improving his skills, created an environment of growth and progress in his journey as a sniper. Little did he know that this was the easiest part of his training. Luffy had no intention of letting up on his endurance and physical strength training. Not to mention that he would need to learn about all his new weapons and put his slingshot aside. 3 days passed. Usopp lay on the ground, resembling a battered dog. He had no more strength left to continue his training for today. Luffy looked at him with an indifferent expression, just as he did with the rest of the crew sprawled on the ground behind Usopp. Luffy had put everyone through rigorous training, including Nami, Shirahoshi, and even Chaochu. He trained Chaochu in increased gravity and weights. Although the dog didn't have humanoid limbs, he could become stronger once he learned Haki. Luffy intended to teach a dog Haki, but he needed to buy the manuals first, which were quite expensive, along with the 6 styles of the marine. "Is this your limit?" Luffy asked seriously, addressing Usopp, Nami, and Shirahoshi, who were the worst off among them. "I can't take it anymore. Please, I'm just a maid." "Luffy-sama is so mean." "Bua." The 3 of them, utterly drained, responded to this question with lifeless eyes. Luffy just sighed. He wouldn't tolerate weakness to make them stronger. He was determined to turn them into strong warriors. "You can do better than this," Luffy replied without hesitation. He learned a lot from his grandfather. Kuina and Zoro seemed unwavering in their determination, despite being in the same condition as the previous 3, they didn't give up easily and kept pushing through the training. "In any case, training is over for today," Luffy finally said. "Thank you. Thank you. Thank you." The 3, who were completely wrecked, cried out in gratitude. "It was quite fun," Yamato said, with a towel wrapped around her neck. She had trained relentlessly with Luffy, even engaging in sparring matches with him. Of course, Luffy had been training as well, testing the potential of his body. He was satisfied with the combination of his increased learning speed from the system and his zone power, which allowed him to make progress. He was working hard to develop his devil fruit powers further. "But Usopp, you better be prepared. The Kuro pirates are expected to arrive tomorrow. Get everything ready by sunrise. I've left new equipment for you. Study the manuals I provided," Luffy warned. "Yes," Usopp replied with determination, closing his fist. "Do you think he'll be okay? He's going to fight a pirate with a 16 million bounty, after all," Nami asked as she limped over to Luffy. "This is a trial he needs to pass, otherwise, the sea won't be kind to him," Luffy said, thinking about how weak Usopp was in the original story. He wanted the lying long-nosed sniper to reveal his true potential as soon as possible because their journey wouldn't be as enjoyable as in the anime. Luffy was certain he would encounter his grandfather in the East Blue before entering the Grand Line, and their battle wouldn't be a quiet one. He would have to use a considerable amount of his devil fruit power, even undergoing a complete transformation. He was training to enhance the power of his fruit. Apart from his grandfather, he had no intention of losing to Kyuzen and Kizaru during their journey. If they ever crossed paths, he wouldn't hesitate to display significant strength. While he wasn't strong yet, he could continue to increase his strength until that time arrived. "I'm counting on it, Usopp," Luffy murmured as he watched Usopp walk away toward his home, struggling to walk. Chapter 26, Syrup Village 05. Syrup Village, East Blue, dawn. The island was enveloped in the tranquil beauty of the morning, with the sun beginning to rise on the horizon, painting the sky in golden and soft orange hues. The waves gently lapped at the fine sandy beach, creating a trail of white foam along the shore. Seagulls soared in the sky, their melodious cries filling the air as they sought their first meals of the day. Then, a distant sound began to break the island's serenity. At first, it was just an almost imperceptible murmur, almost like the whisper of a sea breeze. But soon, it intensified, turning into an unmistakable roar that cut through the air. It was the sound of an approaching ship. From the horizon, a pirate ship emerged, its imposing silhouette cutting through the sea. Tattered, black sails, weathered by time, fluttered in the wind as the ship relentlessly approached the island's coast. The ship's hull bore the emblem of a black cat, a sinister representation of its crew. As the pirate ship drew nearer, the excited shouts of dozens of men could be heard, echoing across the beach and disrupting the morning's tranquility. They were not welcome on that peaceful island, and their intentions were vile. They had been summoned by their former captain, Kuro, who had issued orders through a private Den Mushi to attack the island. The Black Cat pirates were in action under the leadership of the vice captain, Django, who now commanded them as they waited on the beach. The men disembarked with a cruel determination in their eyes, ready to plunder the village. The arrival of the pirate ship cast a possible ominous shadow over the tranquil island, and the fate of the island was about to be decided by the events that would unfold next. After the ship finally stopped, they found themselves on a deserted and isolated beach. Here, the initial commotion began to subside, and they sought a safe place to regroup before launching their attack on the village. The scenery around them was impressive. The beach stretched across a peaceful sandy expanse, with few signs of human life or activity. The sound of the waves gently breaking against the shore echoed, creating an atmosphere of anticipation and tension. The pirates began to spread out on the beach, some gathering in small groups to discuss strategies, while others walked on the sand, looking around to ensure they were safe and away from prying eyes. Their weapons were still at hand, ready to be used at any moment. Django, the vice captain, was at the center of the group, giving orders and coordinating the pirates to prepare for the imminent attack on the village. They checked their weapons, adjusted their clothing, and reinforced each other, ready for the impending battle. They were the Black Cat pirates, who were currently operating under the orders of the vice captain, Django, acting in secret for the past few years. "Let's go, everyone. Regroup with Captain Kuro before we invade the village," Django commanded with enthusiasm as they disembarked and gathered on the beach. "I see that you've arrived earlier than I imagined." A new voice interrupted the pirates' movements, surprising them and, at the same time, bringing relief when they recognized the voice's owner. "Captain Kuro. What happened to you?" Django questioned their former captain as he spotted him. Kuro stood before them, with much of his body wrapped in bandages and an arm immobilized by a splint, evidence of a recent injury. With a determined look, Kuro clenched his teeth tightly, still consumed by the memories of his humiliation and eager for an opportunity for revenge. "Some damn pirate showed up and did this to me," Kuro growled, echoing the memories of the events of the past few days. He remembered how he had contemptuously taunted a group of pirates with bounties lower than his own, only to be brutally defeated by their captain, with no chance of counterattack. The humiliation still burned in his memory. Kuro felt a burning rage welling up inside him, a rage that seemed to consume him after the terrible beating he had taken from Monkey D. Luffy. That defeat at the hands of the young man with the straw hat had been a devastating blow to his proud self-image. Kuro could barely bear the thought of how his grandeur and renown had been shattered by that boy with a straw hat. Every memory of that brutal fight, Luffy's precise blows, and the young pirate's indomitable power fueled his growing anger. He could never have imagined that he would fall to such an extent, to be brutally defeated by the group of pirates he had taunted. Now, Kuro was obsessed, his mind fixed on a single idea: revenge against the man with the straw hat who had dethroned him and reduced him to a pitiable state. "Anyway, let's start the attack. Django, come with me. I've already taken the necessary measures in the mansion, but I need your skill to get Kayu to sign the will documents," announced Kuro, his eyes shining with determination as they prepared to launch the attack on the village. However, before they could give the order, something unexpected happened, interrupting their conversation. Bang! A blast cut through the air, and a bullet fell with a clatter on the ground, right in front of the group of pirates. They all turned to the source of the attack, finding a long-nosed man perched on top of a hill about 400 meters away. He was crouched, holding a rifle firmly, his eyes focused on the approaching pirate group. "It's you." Kuro couldn't help but taunt when he recognized the man. "I didn't expect to find you here, Usopp, but it's a great surprise. I might even kill you before." Kuro couldn't finish the sentence when suddenly, one of the pirates in front of him took a shot to the head. The impact of the bullet caused blood to splatter on the scene, some drops even landed on Kuro's clothes, leaving him stunned. As Kuro tried to process this new information, Usopp, with his deadly aim, fired his rifle, proving that his skills were far more dangerous than Kuro had ever imagined. Shock and surprise were clearly reflected on Kuro's face as he tried to comprehend the surprising turn of events. Usopp had caught Kuro off guard, who had only expected to face a storyteller but found himself facing a skilled and deadly sharpshooter. He couldn't help but question Usopp's newly discovered capabilities, and this revelation made him realize that he had seriously underestimated the long-nosed boy. While Kuro tried to process this new information, Usopp, still crouched, took the opportunity to reload his rifle. The weapon, acquired by Luffy at the store, was a prototype created by Vegapunk, costing only 5 points. It was a powerful piece of technology that outperformed the weapons used by the Marines, and the world government had not yet produced it on a large scale. Usopp, wasting no time, fired more precise shots at the Black Cat pirates. Bang! 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 The gunshots echoed as Usopp relentlessly targeted the invading Black Cat pirates as they advanced along the beach. With determination, he fired accurate shots, ruthlessly taking down the invaders before an explosion occurred. Usopp's precise shots were like bullets guided by destiny, finding their targets with deadly accuracy. The roar of the shots was accompanied by the cries of pain from the pirates hit, one by one falling. The scene was a whirlwind of chaos and desperation, with the Black Cat pirates desperately seeking shelter, but Usopp showed no mercy. His focused gaze and unwavering determination did not waver, and he continued to eliminate his enemies with lethal precision, an impressive display of skill and courage amid the impending confrontation. Usopp demonstrated astounding marksmanship, taking down a dozen pirates with accurate shots. His weapon, with the ability to store multiple cartridges in the magazine, only accentuated his deadly skill. It was as if Usopp possessed an innate gift for taking down his targets, a skill that echoed his father's talent. While Usopp kept the Black Cat pirates at bay, on the other side of a hill, Luffy and his companions watched the scene with attentive eyes. "I'm quite satisfied with this now," Luffy murmured, unable to contain a smile. He had managed to awaken Usopp's bravest side, forcing him to confront his fears and take responsibility for protecting Kaya. Through rigorous training in recent days, Luffy had acquired an arsenal of weapons at the store, especially for Usopp. He spared no effort, subjecting the boy to tough training and forcing him to learn how to use all available weapons. Luffy wanted Usopp to understand that the world was not a place of childish dreams, and that he would have to be willing to get his hands dirty with the blood of his enemies if he wanted to protect Kaya. Despite the suffering Usopp had endured in the past 3 days, he was determined to protect Kaya, even if it meant staining his hands with the blood of the pirates. His determination to fulfill this mission and rescue Kaya was stronger than ever. Bang. Reload. Bang. 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 Usopp turned out to be a natural master with weapons, something Luffy had already noticed. He lamented that in the anime, Usopp had been relegated to using his slingshot. "This is the kind of sharpshooter my crew and I need on my ship," Luffy commented, admiring Usopp's skills. "Are we just going to watch?" Nami asked beside him in her characteristic attire. "For now, yes, but it looks like he might not be able to handle all of them." "Zoro, do you want to get in on the action?" Luffy asked Zoro. "Of course, it's been a while since I've fought, and I'm eager to see the result of my training." Zoro couldn't help but smile with anticipation. "Then go. Let Usopp deal with Kuro. I want him to surpass Kuro here." Luffy made the decision, and Zoro leaped from where they were towards the beach. Kuro boiled with anger, his plans were being thwarted by a boy he never imagined would be capable of killing someone. He looked around and saw a large number of his crew dead on the way, victims of the skilled sharpshooter. In his path, there were many bodies left behind as they tried to reach Usopp, who was on the hill. Kuro, consumed by rage, realized he had no choice. With fury, he used an ability he had developed, inspired by a theory he had seen in the styles used by the Marines and the CP, Marine 6 Styles Instant Transmission. He advanced towards Usopp with only one arm, his claws ready to kill the boy once he was within his reach. Usopp, on the other hand, showed no hesitation. He looked seriously at Kuro's advance and dropped his rifle to pick up a military bag by his side. Kuro was stunned when Usopp removed pins from a strange object he couldn't identify and threw them on the path. The small, almost ball-shaped spheres fell in Kuro's way before he could reach them. However, he didn't have time to maneuver around these objects as he had already used his technique to approach Usopp. When Kuro was about to reach the spheres, he realized too late that they simply exploded, engulfing him in a sudden blast. Boom. Captain Kuro. The Black Cat pirates couldn't contain their shock and astonishment as they saw their former captain being engulfed by the violent explosion. "Let's go. Hurry, help Captain Kuro. It's just a kid." The few survivors among the pirates began to rush toward the explosion, their eyes filled with hatred because Usopp had caught them completely off guard and caused the deaths of many of their comrades. "Where do you think you're going?" A new voice interrupted the determined advance of the group of pirates. A man with 3 swords strapped to his waist appeared in their path, blocking them. "Who the hell are you, you bastard?" Django roared in anger, prevented from advancing. The plan to plunder the island and get rich was becoming increasingly frustrating. "My name is Roronoa Zoro, and I will be your opponent," Zoro declared, with a confident smile and the posture of someone ready for battle. Chapter 27, Syrup Village 06. The explosion occurred on a hill near the island's Syrup Beach. The hill was covered with low vegetation and scattered trees, providing natural cover. The ground was uneven, with small stones and rocks scattered around. The vegetation, though not dense, added a touch of green to the surroundings. The explosion on the hill caused visible damage. Vegetation was uprooted, rocks were displaced, and the ground was churned and scorched. Fragments of grenades and debris were scattered across the rugged terrain, making the area chaotic and marked by the battle that took place between Usopp and Kuro. The smoke from the explosion rose into the air, obscuring the view and contributing to a tense atmosphere. Kuro had been caught in the midst of the explosion, and the hill was the backdrop for the surprising turn of events in the showdown between the two. "You bastard!" Kuro shouted with pure hatred, his expression a mix of anger and pain after being caught off guard by the grenades and the ensuing explosion. His body was marked and bloody, his clothes in tatters, but he remained standing, glaring at Usopp with a look of disdain and determination. When the smoke cleared, Usopp found himself facing the wounded figure of Kuro. The former captain of the Black Cat Pirates was visibly shaken, with his bandages in plain sight and his face bloodied. However, his menacing presence hadn't diminished, and he stared at the long-nosed boy with a mixture of anger and contempt. Yet the fear that Usopp had initially felt upon seeing him soon gave way to renewed determination. He knew that Kaya's safety depended on him and that he couldn't back down now. According to Luffy, Kaya's life depends solely on me. I must face the man in front of me and defeat him at any cost. Usopp thought, strengthening his resolve. The butler, watching the scene closely, didn't like the new determined look on Usopp. Kuro, on the other hand, wasted no time and proclaimed in fury. "You wretch, I'll send you straight to hell." With that, he advanced toward Usopp, his claws ready to attack, despite having only one usable hand. Usopp, planning his strategic attack, had prepared a bag full of C4 explosives to use against Kuro. He strategically placed the bag at the top of the hill, where he was positioned before jumping to dodge Kuro's attack. The explosives were carefully arranged in the bag, ready to be detonated with a remote control that Usopp carried with him. The bag contained a substantial amount of these powerful explosives, meaning the impact of the explosion would be devastating. Usopp, agile and determined, quickly evaded Kuro's attack and leaped from the hill, avoiding his deadly claws. As Usopp hovered in the air, he pulled a remote control from his bag and, without giving Kuro time to react, pressed the button. The bag that Usopp had left behind contained C4 bombs, and when the buttons were pressed, all the bombs detonated. A deafening blast echoed across the entire beach, and the sound reached the village several kilometers away. Usopp was also caught in the explosion, as he was relatively close, but he didn't retreat. He launched the attack, risking his own life even though he was aware of this fact, which made him fall to the ground, panting and seriously injured. With dust in the air, Usopp asked with difficulty, "Did I get him?" However, before he could react, a man even more injured than before appeared in front of him. Kuro moved with pure hatred and attacked. Usopp felt excruciating pain when his left shoulder was pierced by Kuro's claws after the surprise attack. A cry of agony escaped Usopp's lips as the pain intensified following Kuro's attack. "I'll make you suffer for all of this." Kuro snarled with insane malice, as if he were losing control. "I won't let you lay a finger on Kaya." Usopp shouted with determination, drawing a pistol from his hip and catching Kuro off guard. With a point-blank shot, the bullet struck Kuro's leg, which was already too wounded to dodge easily. The impact of the bullet caused his claws to release Usopp, and Kuro vanished, reappearing in a corner, kneeling with his wounded leg oozing blood. "You wretch!" Kuro roared again at Usopp amid the excruciating pain. Meanwhile, on the other side, Luffy, Nami, Zoro, and the others observed the situation closely. "Are you the famous Roronoa Zoro?" Django finally broke the silence, watching Zoro quickly defeat the pirates who had tried to face him in the last few seconds. Anger was beginning to overwhelm Django, as he couldn't see Captain Kuro's fight but heard the explosions in the distance. He was starting to realize that things weren't going as planned. "Yeah," Zoro replied with conviction, untying a cloth from his waist and tying his iconic green bandana to his head. With one of the three swords between his teeth and the other two wielded in each hand, he looked determinedly at the group of pirates. "I will be your opponent," Zoro concluded, his eyes reflecting pure determination as he prepared to face his opponents. "Don't underestimate our enemies. Everyone, pay attention," Django ordered, and the pirates approached, surrounding Zoro in this crucial moment. Django took out his hypnosis medallion and began to swing it in front of everyone present. "What is he doing, Luffy-sama?" Shirahoshi, beside Luffy on the more distant hill, asked as she watched the ongoing battles. She had been worried about Usopp when he faced Kuro but was relieved to see him exit the fight, even though injured. "He's about to use hypnosis to strengthen everyone," Luffy explained, keeping his cool as he watched Django's medallion sway. "Hypnosis? Will that really work?" Nami asked beside them, expressing doubts about the effectiveness of this method. "You'd be surprised at the results," Luffy admitted. He recognized the value of Django's ability, even though it wasn't his preferred style. Luffy had always felt a certain discomfort with abilities that affected people's minds, both in this life and the previous one. He would never consider Django as a possible crew member, despite this intriguing ability, as he disliked powers that tampered with people's minds. Returning to Django's scene. "You'll get stronger, stronger." When Django said these words, they began to become a kind of rabid animals, punching the nearby rocks, even cracking them with the sudden increase in physical strength. This. Nami was stunned. Shirahoshi just placed her hand on her mouth, equally stunned. "Sharky. Woof. It's impossible." Kuina couldn't help but comment. While the members by his side were stunned by the demonstration, Luffy turned his attention to an equally stunned Zoro and activated his Devil Fruit power. More fruit model, amplify human Devil Fruit, sound, amplify 20 times. "Zoro, I see you're facing a challenge. Do you need help?" Luffy spoke calmly, although his voice resonated across the entire beach with unexpected volume. The sudden sound explosion surprised everyone on the beach, especially his close companions, who had to cover their ears due to the proximity of the captain. Zoro, however, looked towards Luffy with determination. "No worries, Captain, I can handle this on my own." Zoro responded, his voice filled with confidence as he clenched the sword between his teeth even tighter and held the other two firmly in his hands. He was ready for battle and determined to face this challenge. After intense days of training, Zoro felt that he had made progress, and this would be the perfect opportunity to test the results of his hard work. Django, taken aback by the sudden sound explosion, diverted his gaze to the hill, realizing that now it wasn't just Zoro who would require his attention. Without wasting time, he immediately issued a loud and urgent command, while Zoro prepared for the showdown. "Attack!" he shouted, and with this command, the pirates launched themselves in Zoro's direction with threatening cries and roars. With a calm demeanor and focused eyes, Zoro awaited the approach of his adversaries. He kept the sword between his teeth, while the other two were ready in his hands, poised to be employed lethally at any moment. As the pirates closed in, Zoro remained steadfast and unwavering, ready to face them all. Each step the pirates took was a step toward the imminent confrontation, and Zoro was determined to prove his progress and skill in the upcoming battles. Zoro's katanas swirled deftly, creating a whirlwind of sharp steel as he moved in the heat of battle. He skillfully evaded punches and attacks with other weapons coming his way, using his opponent's strength against them. The metallic sound of blades colliding echoed across the battlefield, and Zoro maintained his unwavering concentration and fearlessness. The hypnotized pirates advanced on him, blinded by their loyalty to Django and unable to perceive the disadvantage they were in. As Zoro's blades cut through them, some pirates fell to the ground, wounded or dead. The swordsman's ability was evident, and his fight was a deadly dance of steel. Django, on the other hand, was growing increasingly alarmed as he saw his crew being defeated one by one. His face showed concern, and he began to understand that he had seriously underestimated Zoro's power. The smile on the captain's face on the hill reflected his pride as he watched his swordsman in action, aware that the intensive training and system bonuses were yielding remarkable results. "He really got strong," Kuina remarked beside Luffy, admiring Zoro's skill in battle. Luffy couldn't resist the opportunity to tease the girl. "He's stronger than you." Kuina maintained her composure and responded with determination. "Yes, I'm 11 years behind, I'm not surprised. But I'll catch up to him soon." The captain of the Straw Hat Pirates joked with a mischievous smile. "So have you already agreed to join my pirate crew?" Kuina laughed at his question. "Not so fast, clever boy. Our agreement is until I see my father, before making any decisions." Luffy nodded understandingly. "I see. However, the atmosphere changed dramatically when a deafening scream echoed across the battlefield. Luffy, Kuina, and the others turned to see Yamato screaming like an animal, her features distorted. The surprised expression on Luffy's face gave way to concern as he watched his vice-captain's strange behavior. Yamato? She got hypnotized too. Holding his mace and growling like an animal, Yamato jumped off the hill and flew towards Django and the other pirates fighting Zoro. Zoro and the pirates could only stare in surprise at the shadow appearing in the sky, revealing a woman holding a mace as she prepared to blow up the ground in front of everyone. Before anyone could react, it was already too late to dodge. Boom! The explosion reverberated across the battlefield, leaving everyone stunned and covered in dust. Yamato's unexpected reaction added a comedic touch to a tense situation, surprising everyone with her explosive entrance. Django, along with all the pirates, conscious and unconscious, was sent flying through the air, with Zoro following the scene in bewilderment and yelling. At the same time, Luffy watched everything with a shocked look and then slapped himself in the face, muttering, "Why didn't I foresee this? Ha ha ha. Sorry about that, Zoro." Yamato, who had already returned to her normal state, emerged from the wreckage and scratched her head sheepishly, laughing with a comical expression. "It was a bit more explosive than I intended. Zoro, emerging from the debris dirty and with his teeth making a funny shark-like grimace, shouted. Aye. Why did you attack me too? Sorry. Yamada replied, still scratching her head, while both of them were in the middle of that giant crater caused by the strike. Chapter 28, Syrup Village 07. Zoro, I can see you've got a problem. Need some help? This sudden, loud voice made Usopp and Kuro look up the hill where Luffy and the others were. Kuro fixed his burning gaze on Luffy as he spotted him for the first time in the corner of that island under the clear sky. His once intense eyes seemed to spark with unquenchable anger. To Kuro, Luffy's mere presence was a burning wound that turned the peaceful island into an emotional battleground. The origin of his hatred was rooted in the understanding that it was Luffy himself who had sown the seeds of destruction in his elaborate plans. Every failure and twist that threatened his meticulous strategy could be directly traced back to Luffy and his Straw Hat Pirates. Kuro's anger burned with the intensity of 1,000 suns, as he blamed the pirate captain for every setback and obstacle in his path. The discovery that Usopp, someone he had never expected to be so relentless, was under Luffy's influence only fueled Kuro's hatred further. Usopp, the boy he had once known, had become unrecognizable, reinforcing the feelings of powerlessness and anger within Kuro. He wondered how Luffy had managed to wield such influence over one of his former crew members, making him a formidable opponent. Kuro couldn't comprehend how everything had unraveled so quickly, how his carefully laid machinations had come undone in a whirlwind of problems and twists. The only certainty he had was that Luffy was aware of his true identity, and that only heightened the fury burning in his heart. Despite suffering a crushing defeat at the hands of Luffy in a previous confrontation, the mere presence of the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates caused Kuro's anger to grow with each passing second. He couldn't believe that Luffy's group had disappeared after the beating he had taken. The idea that they had abandoned him further fueled his anger, and he remained convinced that, with the help of his old crew, he could deal with Luffy and his companions. Now, with the sunny and tranquil scenery, Luffy's presence only added fuel to the fire of hatred burning inside Kuro. The impending confrontation promised to be an explosion of pent-up emotions as Kuro, determined to avenge his defeats and restore his honor, faced Luffy with a ferocity that only an enemy fueled by the deepest and hottest hatred could display. My meticulously laid plans are in tatters, but at least I'll be rid of you. Kuro roared in frustration, his words dripping with poison as he watched helplessly as his intricate scheme crumbled. He knew that facing Luffy was a sentence of defeat, vividly remembering the previous humiliation and the imminent destruction that loomed over his crew, caused by another relentless force. Usopp's eyes remained firm and determined, hiding the torrent of fear bubbling inside him. The tension was unbearable, causing his body to tremble involuntarily. However, Usopp's courage spoke louder when he convinced himself that he had no choice but to face Kuro, all in order to protect Kaya, his friend and the only light in the midst of the looming darkness. I won't allow it. Usopp exclaimed with a trembling voice, but filled with determination. With the agility of an experienced marksman, he drew his pistol and fired directly at Kuro. The sharp sound of the shots pierced the air, echoing as a challenge to everything Kuro represented. Bang bang bang. Kuro, even with his injured leg, skillfully resorted to his superhuman agility to dodge the bullets, displaying impressive agility that defied logic. Even though the pain of the wound was present, his determination was unwavering. The bullets whizzed through the air, but Kuro remained unscathed, maintaining the distance between him and the deadly ammunition. Die! Kuro bellowed, bursting into an relentless charge towards the long-nosed liar, his face contorted by uncontrollable fury that boiled within him. The thirst for vengeance fueled his strength, making him even more threatening. As Kuro closed in on Usopp, the sniper found himself in a critical situation. Needing to reload his weapon, he momentarily found himself defenseless. However, before he could take any action, a deafening roar echoed through the air. Boom! A grenade exploded violently near Usopp, engulfing him in a cloud of smoke and destruction. The explosion caught Kuro and even Usopp himself, creating a scene of chaos and devastation. Even amid the chaos and the pain that surrounded him, Usopp recognized the need for his sacrifice. He was willing to endure any suffering to stop the vile pirate who threatened his friend and his island. The intense pain he felt became a tangible testament to his courage, a testimony of the price he was willing to pay to protect those he loved. Usopp emerged from the explosion as a fearless hero, far from unscathed. When the dust finally settled, his body was riddled with injuries, a series of cuts and bruises bearing witness to the brutality of the confrontation. Blood flowed from his wounds, staining his attire and the arid ground of the island. Kuro's hoarse and hate-filled voice echoed across the scene, revealing him amidst the carnage. His figure was visibly worn out, a mask of cruelty and blood that covered his already exhausted body. The pirate bled from numerous lacerations, a living testament to the wounds inflicted during the battle. Yet, his fierce determination still burned in his eyes. Usopp, despite the intense pain that tormented him, did not back down from the bloodied adversary. In times past, he might have succumbed to fear and fled, but now, courage compelled him to face the cruel man and exact vengeance for all that Kuro had caused. His voice, though trembling, echoed through the battlefield. "I'll stop you," Usopp proclaimed, unwavering determination in his voice. He aimed his pistol once more, pointing it at his relentless opponent. Kuro, despite his weakened condition, didn't hesitate to respond. With the last reserves of strength within him, he shouted in return, "Die!" He advanced with a terrifying intensity, knowing that the battle had reached its climax. His offensive was a display of the fierceness of his will, even if he was at the limit of his endurance. In the blink of an eye, he vanished from where he stood, delivering a precise and swift strike that cut across Usopp's chest before he could react. "Ah!" Usopp's cry of pain echoed through the scene as he fell backward to the ground, his skin tingling with the searing pain radiating from his wound. Kuro, with a cold and challenging gaze, uttered threatening words as he looked at Usopp, lying on the ground, covered in blood. "I might lose or even die here, but at the very least, I will kill you," he said coldly, his voice echoing in the tense air. However, just as he was about to strike Usopp's head with his deadly blades, a small pebble struck his head, causing him to pause and turn his gaze in the direction of the thrown object's origin. There stood Kaya, tears streaming down her face as she held another stone on the ground, determined to interrupt the imminent atrocity. "I won't let you kill Usopp," Kaya shouted firmly, her voice trembling with fear but resolute to face the danger on behalf of her friend. "Kaya?" Usopp muttered, his face contorted with concern, as he lay helpless on the ground and shouted with all his might, using his last energies to try to protect his friend. "Kaya, get out of here," he growled, urgency echoing in his voice, knowing that Kuro was about to direct his unbridled rage toward the defenseless girl. Immersed in the madness of his fury, Kuro abruptly turned toward Kaya, his hands taking on the form of lethal claws as he advanced toward the defenseless girl, determined to cause as much destruction as possible. Kaya was alarmed, her eyes widening in terror as Kuro appeared before her, his deadly claws poised to strike. "Kaya!" Usopp's anguished cry resonated through the chaotic scene, his desperation echoing in the air as he helplessly watched the terrible threat approach his friend. Boom! The deafening roar of Yamato's explosion made the ground tremble violently in that remote corner of this island. Kuro, already severely wounded, lost his balance and stumbled over his own injuries, his expression of rage turning into a grimace of pain. Amidst the chaos, a gunshot rang out, breaking the silence that followed the explosion. It was Usopp, who seized the moment when Kuro lost part of his balance to shoot his weapon at the villain's back. Kaya watched in terror, her eyes fixed on Kuro's chest, where blood spurted from the spot where his heart should be. Usopp, with no other options, acted on instinct and fired again, aiming for the heart of the man who threatened Kaya's life. Silence fell over the battlefield, now stained with blood. Kuro, dazed, knelt down, touching his bloodied chest, unable to comprehend the rapid turn of fate. It didn't take long for him to fall to the ground, lifeless. Meanwhile, Luffy displayed a small smile, observing the scene of the two battles that had unfolded. For someone who said he didn't care about their lives, you were about to move when they were on the brink of death. Kuina commented with an amused look next to the captain. A smile also appeared on Nami and Shirahoshi's lips, who were watching the scene from a distance. "I don't know what you're talking about," Luffy responded, somewhat embarrassed but proud of his comrades. But before anyone could tease him further, he jumped from the hill to see Yamato and Zoro. Seeing him leave, Kuina and the others could only follow the captain, wanting to avoid any provocation they were about to make. "I see you've put on quite a show," Luffy couldn't help but comment, looking at the scene that Yamato had created on the beach. "Heh." Yamato laughed nervously and embarrassed, while Zoro grumbled at the sight. "Anyway, let's tie them up. We'll have Lami and Bippo hand them over to the Marines in the next few days." Luffy gave the order, and both of them began to do just that, with Nami being the most eager to complete the task, thinking about the money she would earn when these defeated pirates were delivered to a naval base. Watching this, Luffy went to where the young hero was lying, injured. "You fought better than I thought." Luffy quickly reached Kaya and began tending to Usopp with Kuro's lifeless body a few meters away from them. "I believe so. Thank you." It was the only thing Usopp managed to say as he looked as bad as he did when Luffy saw the birth of God Usopp in Dressrosa. "Thank you for helping." Kaya couldn't help but comment as she inspected the long-nosed man's injuries. "Don't worry, I wanted to see if my future sharpshooter was worthy to face the sea, which will be much harder than this battle. At least here, I wasn't disappointed," Luffy commented with a smile. Usopp just nodded in silence. It didn't take long for them to move Usopp to Kaya's mansion after all the pirates were tied up. With the convulsion resolved, Mary prepared a banquet for the group to celebrate the victory in such a difficult moment. The butler was quite wounded, as Kaya had found him injured by Kuro before heading to the beach. Chapter 29, Syrup Village 08. A few hours later, the group gathered at Kaya's mansion. The tension that had dominated the previous moments had given way to a sense of relief and gratitude for having averted the imminent danger that loomed over the village. The battle against Kuro and the desperate fight to protect the peaceful Syrup Village were still fresh in the minds of Usopp and Kaya, but most of the village residents remained unaware of the true peril they had faced. Usopp, injured during the confrontation, had been brought back to the mansion and was being taken care of. Kaya's emotional reunion with her friend, who had risked everything to protect her, had been a touching moment. "You're really a mermaid?" Kaya exclaimed in amazement as she saw Shirahoshi's tail on the sofa, revealing the secret the princess had guarded so carefully. Surprise and admiration shone in her eyes as she beheld the majestic mermaid tail. "Yes, I am, Kaya-sama." The princess responded with a shy tone, her voice revealing a mix of pride and humility in the face of recognition. Nami's announcement added extra excitement to the atmosphere. "So, for our help, I believe we deserve at least 10 million Baileys," Nami exclaimed, referring to the payment for the assistance provided. Her eyes sparkled with the prospect of a reward, while Mary, who was sitting in a corner of the room, watched with a surprised expression at the audacity of the group's current maid. The atmosphere in the mansion had transformed into a space of celebration and gratitude. The group came together to celebrate the success of their mission in helping Kaya and the village rid themselves of the threat posed by Kuro and his gang. The tense mood that had dominated the village had been replaced by a feeling of relief and gratitude, and everyone enjoyed this moment of shared joy. The atmosphere in the mansion was relaxed as the group enjoyed a brief moment of peace and celebration. They all settled in, savoring the delicious treats Mary had provided, demonstrating that her culinary skills extended beyond making tea. "This tea is delicious, Mary," Kuina commented serenely while sipping her favorite drink, maintaining a dignified posture that set her apart from the others. "The sake is great too," Zoro added, drinking directly from a barrel, his throat burning from the liquor he enjoyed. Meanwhile, Kuina couldn't help but make a playful comment. "And to think that idiot Zoro has become an alcoholic. What's the problem? Sake is really good." Luffy chimed in cheerfully, drinking from another barrel nearby. However, Kuina couldn't let the opportunity pass and complained again. "Great, the captain is an alcoholic too. Woof. Woof. Sharky." However, the relaxed atmosphere was abruptly interrupted when the group's pair of pets, the shark and the dog, began to express their displeasure with barks and growls. Zoro, curious, asked, "Why are they so mad?" "Ha ha ha ha, it's because I ate most of the food," Luffy proudly replied, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Although he didn't consume food with the same voracity as the original Luffy, his body still required a significant amount of food to maintain his manatee form. His insatiable appetite was a notable characteristic, and his joy at the meal was evident on his face. Kuina watched the scene with a perplexed expression, not surprised to see that the captain was also a voracious glutton, just like his friends. "No surprise there, the captain is a glutton too," she muttered, somewhat lost in the midst of the gastronomic festival. Luffy laughed merrily, ignoring Kuina's observation. "Hey, don't worry, there's more food, Mary. Ask for more food," Kaya suggested with a warm smile, appreciating the lively interaction among her guests. However, the relaxed atmosphere was momentarily disrupted when Nami noticed Yamato eating raw fish. She exclaimed, leaving Mary behind and pointing with disbelief at Yamato's unusual meal. "Hey, why are you eating that raw fish?" Yamato looked at Nami and, with her mouth full, replied with a muffled voice. "It's Odin's favorite food." She picked up a piece of salmon and savored it. Nami was clearly perplexed. "Who?" Yamato tried to explain, but her mouth full of food made her words unintelligible. Nami shook her head, feeling frustrated with Yamato's lack of clarity, and then ignored her, turning her attention back to the food and pirate group she had infiltrated. Meanwhile, Usopp was sitting alongside the animals, sharing stories and laughter with the group, despite his injuries, which had been properly bandaged after the intense battle. His eyes roamed the scene, absorbing the nuances and peculiarities of that eclectic group. Usopp couldn't help but notice the special dynamic that existed among these people and animals with such diverse personalities. The room was filled with an atmosphere of camaraderie and mutual respect. Despite their striking differences, they seemed perfectly in tune, like a true crew. It was hard for Usopp to believe that they had come together and formed this bond so quickly, in just a few days. "So, this is how crews are," Usopp murmured to himself, his voice almost a whisper as he reflected on what he saw. He looked at his own hands, which he observed with a glint of realization in his eyes. Those hands were witnesses to the changes that had occurred in the past few days. He had finally found the courage to protect what he considered most precious, a desire rooted in his childhood, which had led him to aspire to become a brave sea warrior. Now, he glimpsed the possibility that this dream was not as far off as he had imagined. Kaya waited for the opportune moment and, amidst the atmosphere of camaraderie that pervaded the room, she addressed everyone with words of gratitude and reflection. Her tone was gentle and cheerful, a contrast to the concerns that had haunted the village before. "You came to us like ill-intentioned pirates, but in the end, you saved our lives," declared Kaya, her voice filled with sincere appreciation, causing everyone to turn their attention to her words. Luffy, as always, responded with simplicity, as if it were a common occurrence in his hectic life. "It was nothing. At first, we came here to sell a ship. It was mere luck that we found someone with so much potential and a butler hiding his true identity." Luffy's unpretentious comment brought a smile to Kaya's face. She admired the casual way Luffy treated remarkable deeds, as if they were nothing more than everyday actions. However, the impact of Luffy's words did not go unnoticed by Usopp, who was still stunned by the idea that someone would believe so much in his potential, something that had seemed unattainable until then. Kaya was not about to let the gratitude go unexpressed. She made a surprising announcement. "Even so, all of this resulted in saving our lives. As a token of my appreciation, in addition to buying your ship, I intend to gift you with your own vessel." Kaya's generous gesture was even more striking, considering that Luffy and his crew had acquired their ship by stealing it from the Navy. Her sincere words and the gesture of gratitude demonstrated how much she valued the help they had provided to the village. Luffy expressed a genuine smile, although his thoughts on the matter were a bit more complex than his initial reaction suggested. Initially, he had hesitated about Kaya's offer, considering that the merry-going was not originally designed for the challenges of the New World or sailing in waters full of similar dangers. He pondered the possibility of declining the ship and asking for money instead, with concerns that acquiring a ship that didn't perfectly fit their needs might end up being a burden, forcing him to abandon it in the future. However, a viable alternative soon emerged in his mind, thanks to the system that assisted him on his journey. An option where Luffy could pay for the ship's refurbishment with his points, shaping it and making it more powerful according to his needs. This prospect convinced him to accept Kaya's ship gladly. "I accept, but I have one condition. I want to give the ship a name," Luffy announced, his voice filled with excitement. Kaya considered the suggestion, glancing at Mary, who nodded in approval. The governess soon clarified. "The ship was completed yesterday, but due to the confusion caused by Kuro, we haven't had the chance to name it yet. I was planning to do so tomorrow, so the ship the young miss is offering still doesn't have an official name, and you'll have the privilege of naming it as you please." Luffy was pleased with the news. He wasn't interested in keeping a name like Merry-Going or Sunny Go. Although there was nothing wrong with those names, they didn't match his personal style. He aspired to something more powerful and iconic, like Whitebeard's Moby Dick or Gul D. Roger Zoro Jackson. The opportunity to choose the name for his own ship was a chance he welcomed wholeheartedly. "Perfect. I'm looking forward to naming our ship," Luffy declared, radiating joy and anticipation. The celebration continued throughout the night, turning Kaya's mansion into a place of joy and celebration. The mansion was alive with laughter, animated conversations, and the echo of shared stories among the eclectic group that had gathered to celebrate the victory over Kuro and his gang. As the night advanced and the celebration banquet went on, Luffy and Zoro consumed numerous barrels of sake and other alcoholic beverages, showing little restraint. Their loud laughter and drunken antics stood out among the others as they competed to see who could drink more. While the party continued to be lively, Shirahoshi, the young mermaid, was enchanted by Kaya. The girl, who had lived most of her life in isolation and confinement, found in Kaya someone who understood and shared her life experience. She felt immediately drawn to Kaya's generosity and the warmth of her heart, which welcomed her as part of the celebration. The heroes of the day, exhausted but happy, shared stories about their adventures, funny memories, and details of the battle against Kuro and his gang. There was a sense of unity and camaraderie, as if they had formed an improvised crew for one night. Smiling and grateful faces filled the room, and the bonds that were formed that night seemed unbreakable. As the night neared its end, sleepy eyes replaced the lively gazes. The celebration finally came to its conclusion, and one by one, the participants bid their farewells and went to their rooms to rest. Luffy woke from his slumber in Kaya's mansion, finding himself ensnared in the warm embrace of Yamato, who was softly snoring in one of the guest rooms. With considerable effort, Luffy managed to free himself from Yamato's grip, still feeling somewhat taken aback by the unexpected gesture from the princess. He then focused on straightening his clothes, which had been wrinkled by the embrace. As he adjusted his attire, Luffy glanced out the room's window, observing the peaceful scene outside. His eyes settled on Usopp, who was walking in the mansion's yard with his bandages visible. The captain of the Straw Hat Pirates saw this situation as an opportunity to test the young sharpshooter's courage and determination, to determine if he would be a valuable addition to the crew. "Hey! Luffy greeted, causing Usopp to jump in surprise at his sudden appearance. Luffy. Usopp nearly shouted in surprise. I remembered that you were alone here and thought we could talk. Luffy said with a friendly smile. Talk? Usopp asked, curious, although he already suspected what it was about. Yes, talk. I want you to join my crew. But I won't force anyone to enter it. However, I believe in you, Usopp. I'm sure that if you join us, you'll become a brave warrior, respected in every corner of this world. It'll be a challenging path, with trials and suffering, but I'm confident you'll overcome it all. If you accept, your dreams will come true. Luffy spoke with confidence, his faith in Usopp clear in his words. Usopp looked at Luffy with a mixture of surprise and apprehension. What if I'm not strong enough, Luffy? What will happen then? What if I'm just a burden to all of you? Luffy responded with a calm smile. Don't worry, Usopp. You're already strong, and I'm sure you'll become even stronger. We're here to support each other. No matter how tough it gets, we'll face it together. Plus, I've seen your courage. You stood up to Kuro to protect your friend, and now, you're willing to embark on an adventure with us. I believe in you, and I'm sure you'll be an amazing addition to our crew. So, what do you think? Usopp reflected for a moment, recalling all the experiences of the past few days. It was a chance to pursue his dreams alongside reliable and strong people, like those he had crossed paths with. I want to join you, Usopp declared, overcoming his hesitation. He was determined to embark on this adventure and knew that, with that group, he could achieve his goals. That's great. Luffy celebrated, excited about Usopp's decision. Now, we're officially crewmates. Get ready for many adventures, Usopp. Usopp smiled, feeling nervous yet excited. He was ready to face the challenge that lay ahead, confident that with his new friends, he could overcome it. Luffy's faith in him motivated him to give his all on the journey about to begin. System, crew, Usopp has joined your crew. Luffy opened a sincere smile when he saw the system notification confirming Usopp's entry into his group. That's great. Let's announce your entry to the crew during breakfast when everyone is gathered. Luffy suggested, and they went back inside the mansion. Luffy found the crew gathered in the mansion's kitchen, where each member was busy eating and drinking something. The wooden table was filled with food dishes, fruits, and juices, creating a lively atmosphere. Yamato was particularly visible, expressing her dissatisfaction quite audibly. You shouldn't have left the room, Luffy. You should have been resting. Yamato grumbled, eating a piece of fruit with a scowl on her face. Luffy, always in a good mood, ignored Yamato's comment and the questioning looks from some of the girls. With that, he continued to smile at Usopp, who was a little bewildered by the scene. Everyone, I have fantastic news. We have a new member joining us. Luffy announced with excitement, casting a warm glance in Usopp's direction. The news was received with enthusiasm and curiosity by all crew members, who looked at Usopp, awaiting a brief introduction, even though they already knew the boy. This is Usopp, the brave and courageous sharpshooter we met on Syrup Island. Luffy proudly introduced Usopp. He is incredible and will help us in our adventures. Welcome, Usopp. A new member. Shirahoshi exclaimed, her voice sounding like music to Usopp's ears. Woof. Chouchu barked cheerfully, making Usopp smile. Sharky. Sharky. Megalo also joined in the celebration, greeting Usopp with enthusiasm. Zoro greeted Usopp with a simple nod of his head, but there was a hint of recognition in his eyes. Ha ha ha, we have a new crewmate. Yamato expressed her joy with a warm smile, despite her earlier complaint. Nami and Kuina remained silent, observing the scene with neutral expressions, but they couldn't help but smile at Usopp's happiness. Kaya, seeing the warm interaction between the crew members, felt a twinge of sadness in her eyes, knowing that her friend was about to leave in pursuit of his dreams. However, Usopp's happiness was contagious, and she couldn't help but be happy for him. Thank you. I think. Usopp responded timidly, still processing the warm reception from his new crew. Luffy made the announcement with his typical enthusiasm, but with a touch of seriousness. Anyway, let's save the celebration for the ship. We're leaving as soon as possible, so I'd like Usopp to prepare his farewell and collect any equipment that is still useful from the fight against Kuro. Meanwhile, the rest of you should also get ready. I'll take care of business with Kaya and Mary here. Luffy communicated, making it clear the time was of the essence. Wait. Let me go with you. Nami quickly shouted, showing her eagerness to handle financial matters. Alright, you might be useful. Luffy thought for a moment and agreed to the idea of taking Nami with him. He knew that Nami had a talent for squeezing every bit of money out of any situation, and he didn't want to miss the opportunity to make the most of the people's generosity in front of him. Chapter 30, Syrup Village 09. The atmosphere in Syrup Village, located in the East Blue, was filled with its usual morning weather. Mary opened a suitcase in front of Luffy and Nami, revealing its contents with a dramatic gesture. In the blink of an eye, the distance between Mary and the duo seemed to widen as he stepped back. Nami couldn't help but wear a mischievous demon-like smile. Even her hair seemed to come to life, forming two figurative horns on her head, emphasizing her cheeky expression, which Luffy noticed with an amused smile. "I have to admit you're a great maid." Luffy praised the mischievous woman, his expression also brimming with joy. "I'm a navigator," she protested, but Luffy disregarded her argument with a shameless smile. Before them lay a suitcase full of Baileys, the common currency in the world of One Piece. Luffy and Nami had just arrived at the port to negotiate for Buggy's ship after using the power of the More Fruit model, Amplify Human Devil Fruit, to increase its original size for evaluation. Mary and Kaya, who were accompanying them, were left in awe when they saw Luffy pull out Buggy's ship from his pocket, and in a matter of seconds, Luffy turned it back to its normal size. The young man's astonishing ability didn't go unnoticed, leaving Mary and Kaya completely shocked. Recovering from the initial shock, Mary decided to inspect Buggy's ship inside and out, while the negotiations began. In the end, the deal netted them 30 million Baileys. Although the initial price was 25 million, Nami's cunning came into play. With her bargaining skills, she managed to squeeze an extra 5 million Baileys from the value, increasing the total amount to 30 million. Luffy was extremely pleased with the cat burglar's prowess. "Now we're in really good shape," proclaimed Luffy, approaching the suitcase and unable to resist touching it, as if the Baileys contained therein were a tangible realization of his success. "What? Not again!" Nami screamed as she saw Luffy perform this action, recalling the last time he had acted similarly when all their wealth had vanished before their eyes. It was a nightmare she didn't want to relive. Before Nami could approach and prevent Luffy from going on, acting on instinct, she pounced on him. But the money disappeared again, just like in the terrible nightmare that still haunted her memories. Added 30 million Baileys to the store balance, 42 million. Luffy had spent a considerable amount of money in recent days, especially on Usopp's weapons, as nothing in those items was cheap. However, in the end, the investment proved to be worthwhile. "No!" Nami exploded, jumping on Luffy and grabbing him in anger, refusing to let him go. "Why did you do that? Where the hell did the money go? Give it back, give it all back now!" she screamed, tears of frustration rolling down her cheeks as she held Luffy tightly. "Don't worry about it, the money was deposited into the crew's fund," Luffy said, while Nami's cheek was pulled by him. "Crew fund? I deserve a share of that money," she protested, not releasing him. "I can't give you the money right now, but I'll reward you later. I still have Buggy and Kuro's rewards to collect, and I plan to capture Krieg and Arlong's heads for their bounties," Luffy announced, silencing Nami the next moment. She let go of him and looked at him with a serious expression. "Hey, are you really going to fight them?" she asked, in a worried and curious tone. The last name that came from Luffy's lips was Nami's worst nightmare. Even after all the displays of strength by the man with the straw hat, her mind was reluctant to accept that he could face Arlong. "Yes, any problem?" Luffy raised an eyebrow, appearing defiant, but it was a fun moment for him. "I heard they are the most powerful pirates in this sea, especially Arlong. Fishmen are considered to be 10 times stronger than humans," Nami warned, with a hint of concern in her voice. "Nonsense!" Luffy huffed, cutting her off before Nami could continue. "I could raise Lobetown to the ground in a day. I doubt a mere fishman could do the same. If they were that powerful, why would they be sailing in the weaker sea with a bounty of only 20 million? I've met and lived among pirates with bounties in the billions. It won't be a fishman with such a low bounty that makes me fear for my ambitions," Luffy said, his voice filled with seriousness and even a touch of anger. He detested being underestimated or pitied. He was the type who would rather face death than beg for his life. Luffy's words left Nami stunned. Not only by the anger in his tone but also by the astonishing information he shared. Laying waste to one of the biggest cities in this sea? Calling Arlong a mere fishman? A bounty of only 20 million? Knowing pirates with bounties in the billions? Not being afraid to pursue his ambitions? The words echoed in Nami's mind, deeply shocking her. She never imagined this man was so fearless, or that anyone could mock Arlong and his crew so easily. Maybe he... Nami began to think, but couldn't finish her thoughts. "I don't know what your history with them is since you seem quite scared, especially about Arlong. However, based on the information I gathered in the past few days before our meeting, it seems that Arlong is just a pompous manatee. He brags about his strength, but in the end, he's just a tyrant who enslaves ordinary people with the help of the Naval Base 16. A tasteless joke, in my opinion. He doesn't even use his strength to kill people and prefers to use guns. What a joke." Luffy wasn't angry anymore, but his mocking tone was evident. Nami listened to all of this with a whirlwind of thoughts, clenching her hands and unable to formulate a response. Anyway, let's go find the others, Luffy said, not waiting for her, and began to walk towards the port to gather the rest of the crew. As Luffy walked away, the orange-haired girl dressed like a maid stayed in the room where Luffy had distanced himself from her, absorbed in her own thoughts. Luffy's words were challenging and full of conviction, and something about his confidence made her question her own beliefs. A small spark of hope began to grow in her heart. What if, against all odds, Luffy could fulfill his bold promise? Nami couldn't help but imagine a scenario where Luffy, with all his strength and determination, confronted Arlong and his crew. She visualized Kokoyashi village being liberated from the oppressive rule of the fishmen, the villagers finally regaining their peace and freedom. As Luffy set out to find his crew, Nami's hope grew. She was determined to uncover the truth behind Luffy's words and perhaps find a way to believe that he could be the answer to saving her village and achieving her own dreams. Outside the mansion, at the port, everyone was ready to board their brand new ship, the original Merry-Go. Let's head to the port and board our brand new ship. Luffy met up with everyone and led the way. Upon arriving, they were met with a peculiar ram-head-shaped ship, small and quaint, designed to accommodate the crew. However, Luffy already had ambitious plans to transform it into a powerful battleship, using all available parts. The only obstacle was the money needed to carry out this grand renovation. Is it true that Big Brother Usopp is setting sail? A child's voice echoed, full of excitement reached their ears. Big Brother is so amazing! Exclaimed another voice, full of admiration. 3 children approached Usopp, who was packing his bags and the weapons left from the battle with Kuro. His rifle was visibly damaged, as was his pistol. He had organized his belongings in his house away from the village and was ready for the new journey into the unknown. As soon as the children heard about it, they ran to say goodbye to their old friend, eager for one last meeting before his departure. Yes, I, the brave Usopp, will become a fearsome warrior of the seas, Usopp announced, pointing to himself with a smile on his face. Even though he was still injured from the battle, Luffy dramatically accelerated his recovery process, providing him with a remarkable improvement in just one night. What would normally take months to heal, he could achieve in a matter of days, thanks to the power of his devil fruit. Let's all board, as there are things we need to do, and we're in a hurry, announced Luffy, urging everyone to head to the ship. And you too. Kiss already, we're waiting on the ship, Usopp, Luffy added, catching Kaya and Usopp by surprise with his comment as he turned and walked away, interrupting the farewell moment they were about to share, to a rather embarrassed moment. Kiss. They both responded simultaneously, their faces blushing like peppers as they were taken aback by Luffy's unexpected suggestion. Hey, Luffy, I can't fit through one of these doors, Yamato complained, frowning with frustration since she was too tall for the ship's doors. Don't worry, I'll swap our current vessel for a marine boat when we're farther away from the island. We don't want trouble if they see us with a stolen military boat at the port, that could draw unwanted attention to the island as well. I'll make the swap as soon as we're far enough, explained Luffy, and everyone nodded, understanding the precaution. I'm ready, Captain. Usopp boarded with an announcement, showing determination on his face. Great, let's go. Lami is nearby since her Vivre card is active. We're going to meet her to deliver the new batch of captured pirates, Luffy proclaimed, his expression reflecting his determination to fulfill the mission. Speaking of which, Captain, where are the Black Cat pirates? Usopp couldn't help but ask, curious about the fate of his former enemies. They're here, Usopp-sama, Shirahoshi replied, presenting a small birdcage that contained the Black Cat pirates, now reduced to miniature prisoners. After this brief moment of clarification, Luffy used his power to speed up the ship, making it shoot off at high speed as they moved away from Syrup Village and set off for their next adventure. Chapter 31, Drip to Barity 01. What name will you put on the ship, Captain? The first thing Usopp asked as they sailed away from their old island. I haven't decided yet, I'm torn between Stormfell, Black Pearl, Sea Overlord, what eye-catching names, Zoro remarked. I know, but I haven't figured out which one to choose yet, so I'll leave it to the readers of this fanfiction, Luffy murmured. Amazing. Yamato's eyes sparkled. Incredible, Usopp said in a trance. You guys don't even know what he is talking about, Zoro grumbled. Readers? Nami raised an eyebrow. And why are we in a fanfiction? Kuina crossed her arms in disbelief. What is a fanfiction, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi asked with curiosity. Woof. Sharky. Really, Chouchou-sama? Hey, listen anyway, the name of the ship was chosen by readers with the highest votes. The name will be. The name was chosen in Portuguese version, Black Pearl. The sky stretched in intense and clear blue, without a cloud in sight. The sun shone brightly, warming the land with its golden rays. The air was pure and fresh, free from any sign of pollution or haze. It was one of those rare moments when nature revealed itself in all its splendor, on a day of clear and bright sky, providing a sense of serenity and purity that soothed the soul. Birds flew gracefully through the firmament, leaving traces of shadows on the breathtaking landscapes, in perfect harmony with the beauty of the day. It was as if the sky itself smiled at the earth, illuminating it with its purity and radiant beauty. At sea, an imposing marine ship sailed alone, cutting through the waters with unwavering elegance. On the deck, a group of individuals lay, looking disoriented and defeated. Luffy, always quick with his solutions, switched ships, making the stolen marine ship increase in size. He took it out of a small box he had acquired in Kaya's mansion. Luffy found it safer to store his ships in that small box since he had the power to shrink them to the size of a marble and store them in his pocket. Once everyone moved to the larger ship, Luffy shrank the small ship, now named Black Pearl, to a minuscule size and stored it in the small pocket box again. On the ship's deck, Luffy turned into a ruthless general. He spared no one in training, imposing a level of rigor that challenged the endurance of his crew. His voice echoed, firm and challenging, as he watched each member fight under the increased gravitational pressure. "Come on, is this all you guys can do? I was expecting much more from you," he shouted, his words filled with authority and determination. "It's very hard, Luffy-sama," Shirahoshi muttered, but Luffy didn't relent. "For me, it's quite easy," Yamato replied calmly, demonstrating unwavering determination. Zoro and Kuina were sweating profusely, but Luffy didn't give them a break. "We aren't monsters like you and the captain," Zoro commented, recognizing the harsh reality of the relentless training. Choucha whined like a defeated dog, but Luffy showed no mercy. He continued to encourage, challenge, and push his crew to the limit. "Megalo, I hope you give your best too," he ordered, making no exceptions for the non-human members of the crew. And when it came to Usopp, Luffy didn't hesitate to show his indifference. "You can't even lift a finger. I'll leave you like this until I'm satisfied with your performance," he stated, highlighting his determination to forge an elite crew, even if it meant not going easy on any of them in training. "Shirahoshi, you have a great hidden power within you, I know you can do better than this," Luffy exclaimed, his voice conveying a mix of encouragement and challenge. Shirahoshi was in a state similar to Usopp, or perhaps even worse, as silent tears streamed down the young girl's face during training. However, Luffy had committed himself to make her powerful before they reached the New World, and he didn't plan to allow her an easy time during training. While everyone was on the ground, panting and exhausted, only he and Yamato remained standing, locked in a constant confrontation. Luffy occasionally interrupted the fight to provide words of encouragement and guidance to each crew member. He behaved like a true drill sergeant, commanding his subordinates with firmness and determination. There was no room for complacency, and his lack of mercy echoed through endless hours of grueling training. Luffy created 10 training categories with his crew: gravitational push-ups. Under increased gravity pressure, all crew members perform push-ups to strengthen their chest, shoulders, and arms. Luffy encourages everyone to stay in shape, ensuring there is no let-up. Gravitational squats. Squats are performed to strengthen the legs and endurance. Increased gravity makes this exercise even more challenging, testing everyone's resilience. Deck runs. Crew members run on the deck under increased gravity, developing endurance and speed. Luffy makes sure everyone is giving their best. Combat training. Luffy, Zoro, and Yamato lead combat training sessions, practicing fighting and sword techniques. Crew members are instructed to hone their skills and defend themselves under increased gravity conditions. Endurance training. To develop physical and mental endurance, crew members engage in resistance exercises, such as long-distance runs and high-intensity interval training sessions. Gravitational weightlifting. The strongest, like Luffy and Yamato, engage in weightlifting under increased gravity to further strengthen their muscles. Agility training. Agility exercises are performed to enhance reflexes and mobility, essential for the battles they will face in the New World. Climate resistance training. As part of their comprehensive training, crew members undergo training in extreme weather conditions, such as exposure to strong wind and rain, to prepare them for the unpredictable conditions of the sea. While all this was happening, Nami, still dressed as a maid, was on the sidelines, immersed in her own thoughts. Since they left Syrup Village, Luffy's words echoed incessantly in her mind, leaving her deeply reflective. Beyond the words, Nami began to notice something that deeply troubled her. Luffy didn't treat her the same way as the other crew members. She began to notice nuances in his behavior, a subtly distinct treatment, as if he saw her a little differently from the others, despite all the friendship and camaraderie. This perception squeezed her heart and created a sense of uncertainty. From a young age, Nami harbored a deep hatred for pirates, but watching this peculiar group made her question her own beliefs. They were a kind of crew she had never seen before, and that left a bitter taste in her mouth. She felt hurt and out of place, as even the other crew members didn't embrace her as a true nakama. Nami sighed softly to herself, sinking into her thoughts. Maybe it's because I joined the group with the wrong intentions, she murmured to herself, expressing self-criticism and reflection on her past actions. However, her brief reflection was interrupted by Luffy's energetic voice. "Maid. Our training is over. Could you bring us some refreshing drinks?" called the captain, releasing the gravitational pressure imposed on the group. "Why yes." Nami replied quickly, but this time her voice carried a more dejected tone than anger. This did not go unnoticed by Luffy, who arched an eyebrow as he watched her walk away. He pondered in silence, was I too hard on her? Anyway, unless she comes to me and shows her true intentions and feelings, I'm not willing to ease the pressure. Not when it seems like, deep down, she just wants to steal from us. Luffy watched Nami's back with a thoughtful look, maintaining his firm and determined posture but also attentive to the complex situation involving the cat thief and his crew. After Nami brought some refreshing drinks, the crew began to relax. Everyone settled in, easing the tension after the grueling training. Kuina, while savoring some rice cakes that Nami had brought from the stock, commented. "We urgently need a cook. These rice cakes are good, but no one here really knows how to cook." Zoro nodded, adding, "And what about our next stop, Captain? Where are we going?" Luffy couldn't contain his excitement as he replied. "We're heading to the Barati restaurant. I'm sure the perfect person for the job is there right now. And believe me, there's no chef like him in all the seas." His eyes gleamed with enthusiasm, already anticipating the next stage of his journey to strengthen his crew. Although Luffy knew he might have to beat up Sanji a few times to keep him away from his ladies, he still hoped to find a reliable and strong version of the cook. However, he was aware that the world they were in now could have caused unexpected changes in his companions. "I understand, but I don't think that will make a difference," Yamato commented beside Luffy, expressing a pragmatic attitude towards the situation. "Sure, you only eat raw salmon," Usopp joked comically, shouting at Yamato while she enthusiastically devoured pieces of salmon. "I'm just following the footsteps of my sacred book," Yamato replied, pulling a book from inside her bra, revealing her loyalty to the wisdom contained in its pages. Kuina, observing the book that accompanied Yamato when she summoned it, couldn't help but let out a amused grumble. "I'm afraid to open that book," she murmured, giving a skeptical look at Hoden's mysterious diary. Luffy thought that while Lami had Drapo and Shirahoshi, Megalo, and Yamato brought with them a diary that seemed to be an irreplaceable artifact in their lives for that woman. "Oh. Oh." Chaochu barked, communicating in his canine language. "Sharky." Megalo translated the message for his partner, using his ability to understand the language of dogs. An infectious laughter escaped from Shirahoshi's lips upon hearing Megalo's translation. Luffy, in turn, sighed, understanding what Chaochu was trying to communicate. Even Shirahoshi, who didn't directly understand the language of dogs, grasped the meaning through Megalo. However, the atmosphere quickly changed when Usopp, who had moved away from the group after eating a bit, reported a concerning discovery. He used a magnifying glass to observe the sea around, and suddenly exclaimed, "Captain! A merchant ship is being attacked by pirates." Luffy's eyes narrowed as he looked in the direction pointed by Usopp. Although his vision was incredibly sharp, the distance made it difficult to distinguish details. However, he managed to perceive the rising smoke, a sign that some fire was occurring on that merchant ship, being attacked by a pirate ship. Excited at the prospect of acquiring new treasures, Luffy announced, "Let's move forward and see if we can loot a few more treasures." The crew's reaction was immediate. Even Nami, who had been lately disheartened, opened her eyes with joy at the possibility of gaining new wealth. Luffy quickly assigned tasks. "Kuina, can you take the helm?" "Yes." Kuina promptly replied. "Zoro, Usopp, and even Yamato fought recently. Shirahoshi, Megalo, and Chaochu are not ready for combat yet. I'll lead this fight," announced Luffy. He could have assigned Yamato to the battle, but he was eager to get into action himself. Suddenly, Luffy made a decision and announced, "Anyway, I'm off, goodbye." Before anyone could respond, his wings and hair grew rapidly, transforming him into a winged figure, and he flew quickly towards the sky. As the only crew member with the ability to fly, he soared into the skies, determined to reach the battle before the arrival of the marine ship. With a shout, he activated his speed abilities, accelerating 30 times faster than normal, disappearing into the air as he flew towards the confrontation. The astonishing speed allowed Luffy to reach the ships in a matter of seconds. As he approached, he glimpsed the terrible scene before his eyes. The merchant ship was in shambles, with parts of it on fire and bodies scattered on the deck. It was evident that a massacre had occurred, as there were few survivors. They didn't stand a chance. Luffy murmured as he observed the desolate scene. He descended from the skies to examine the situation more closely. However, something caught Luffy's attention. He noticed that the supposed pirates attacking the merchant ship didn't look like ordinary pirates. They wore elegant clothes and black suits instead of typical pirate attire. Moreover, they were armed in an organized manner and seemed much more trained than a group of common pirates. Very strange. These clothes aren't typical of pirates. Why are they using a pirate ship? Luffy pondered, watching the black-suited armed men. Additionally, he noted that many victims, including civilians and soldiers, had been shot. This wasn't the typical action of common pirates. A theory began to form in Luffy's mind. He began to suspect that these pirates were actually disguised agents of the world government, conducting a secret operation. They were using a pirate ship as a facade to cover up their actions. This allowed them to sail without being challenged, as any marine ship that saw them attacking would believe they were facing pirates. Luffy realized that there were many agents on board, and almost all of them wore black suits and were armed with rifles. However, a tall man in a red suit and sunglasses stood out. He was speaking to a distant Dendenmushi at the center of the merchant ship, while two men in white suits handed him a piece of paper and a chest. The man in the red suit was now communicating with someone on the other end of the line. As Luffy observed the scene, he noticed that there were only two living people on the merchant ship, a couple who were tied to a corner of the deck with chains. However, they were not in good condition, they appeared injured and frightened. Luffy watched the situation, thinking that he was about to embark on a new and exciting adventure. He wasn't exactly following the original Luffy's footsteps because something new and intriguing had unfolded before him. "We have the key." "Confirmed with a map as well," replied the man in the red suit through the radio. "Very well, the government is finally after that key. We had no leads for the last 300 years, but the reports from our agents brought us to it in this sea." The voice on the other end of the Dendenmushi was filled with enthusiasm. "That's wonderful, Agent Sky. I'm sure your promotion from Cypher Pol 5 agent to a higher division is guaranteed." The same voice continued. "I am grateful, but I'm just doing my..." Bing! Boom! Before Agent Sky could finish his sentence, the entire environment was engulfed in a sudden wave of heat and a deafening explosion. A shot echoed from the sky, catching everyone off guard. They barely had time to look up when the Dendenmushi exploded in a burst of purple flames, catching everyone unawares. Agent Sky quickly looked up, alarmed, and recovered from his shock that lasted only milliseconds. "Who?" he shouted in anger. The operation was going so well until now, and suddenly, something unexpected happened, disrupting the mission. He spotted some kind of black angel hovering 50 meters from the site, in the air. Although belonging to a significant division of the world government, only a small group of the main Cypher Pol teams and the agents responsible for the Tenri Obito's were aware of hockey and had proper training. Agent Sky was not part of that group and had no idea of Luffy's approach as they carried out the mission. If Agent Sky had knowledge of the Lunarians, his first assumption upon seeing Luffy in the skies would have been that. However, he would be wrong. A devil fruit user was his initial impression upon observing Luffy. The winged man grinned at all the government agents while holding a pistol pointed where he had shot with his chaos flame power. Both Agent Sky and the other agents in white and black suits, as well as the prisoners, looked at the new winged man, completely dumbfounded. "Can I join in on this fun too?" Luffy asked playfully, his voice echoing throughout the area. Chapter 32, Trip to Barity O2. Above the pirate ship's deck, with the vastness of the ocean stretching endlessly around, Luffy floated in the air, his shadowy wings casting a dark silhouette against the backdrop of the open sky. The ship beneath him swayed gently on the waves as he stared down at the government agents, frozen in a moment, halted by the unexpected appearance of this mysterious figure. His black wings fluttered lightly, and his devilish grin widened as he observed the scene below. The government agents, dressed in their black and white suits, stood frozen like statues, their expressions a mix of shock and a hint of fear at the hostile arrival of this unknown being. The echoes of their interrupted conversation hung in the air, their radio communication cut off by the chaotic flames of Luffy. With a pistol in hand, still emanating the hues of purple fire from his mythical zone powers, Luffy approached them with a playful yet menacing tone. "I think I'll join the fun too, huh?" His voice resonated throughout the area, a dark melody that intrigued and terrified those who heard it. The red-suited agent, identified as Sky, glared at Luffy with anger and disbelief, his composure shattered by the sudden intrusion. The other agents and prisoners on the ship watched in stunned silence, their minds struggling to comprehend the emergence of this enigmatic figure with wings and flames. "Who are you?" Sky's furious shout echoed across the deck, breaking the brief silence that followed the destruction of his Dendenmushi. Luffy hovered in the air, his shadowy wings gently flapping as he stared at the agent with a nonchalant yet piercing gaze. An ironic smile played on his lips, and his eyes sparkled with mischievous fire. I'm just a casual traveler, you know. Caught your ship having fun at the expense of another, but I can't help but notice. You guys are from the world government, right? I was surprised how you sent all those innocents to the other world. Luffy scoffed, his voice casually echoing in the air, each word hitting like a sharp arrow, amplified by the subtle manipulation of more fruit model, amplify human devil fruit commands. So, you know we're from the world government, and still, you continue with this arrogance? How dare you question the world government and interfere in its operations? The red-suited man roared, anger distorting his features as everyone around prepared for the imminent battle. I have no idea who you are, and you have no idea about the vital importance of this operation. But let me tell you one thing, you'll find your death here, and then we'll unearth all your background, eliminating every person associated with you. The agent's anger boiled in his words as team members pointed their rifles at the Luffy floating in the air. Oh, I must admit you have a special talent for ticking people off. Luffy commented with a light sarcasm, his voice flowing in a calm tone but carrying with it the promise of an impending storm. Luffy's hatred was visceral when it came to threats against his family and friends. Even knowing that the world government probably wouldn't launch an attack on Garp's acquaintances in the Goa Kingdom, the mere mention of such a threat was enough to ignite fury within him. Perfect? You just gave me more than enough reason to wipe all of you out. Luffy declared, his weapon pointed directly at the red-suited agent. The deck was about to become the stage for an explosive showdown between the Straw Hat and the dark arm of the world government. The brief tense silence was shattered by a series of consecutive explosions as Luffy fired his still-pointed gun, pulling the trigger toward the ship below. Bang followed by boom, bang, and again boom. The resounding sound of explosions echoed through the deck of the commercial and pirate ship, creating a chaotic symphony that filled the air. Bang, an explosion rang out as Luffy's pistol found its target, sending one of the agents flying backward. Boom, another roar echoed as the pistol fired again, hitting the next target and scattering debris on the deck. Bang boom. Bang boom. Bang boom. Bang boom. Bang boom. Bang boom. Luffy always had an affinity for firearms, and this was clearly reflected in his new arsenal in this world. In addition to his naturally powerful physiology, he had incorporated the use of firearms into his fighting style, complementing his abilities with a pistol. The power of chaos flames associated with the pistol dramatically enhanced his ability to perform quick and precise attacks. He hunted down world government agents as if they were prey, each shot a sentence of condemnation. His serious expression contrasted with the fluidity of his movements, demonstrating unmatched dexterity. The agents, unprepared to face Luffy's fury, desperately tried to dodge but seemed powerless against the overwhelming force of the Straw Hat. Pop pop as explosions echoed in the air, Agent Sky, skillfully using the moonwalk technique, glided through the air as if walking on the ground. Being a member of Cypher Pol 5 agent, he was proficient in some of the 6 styles. Grab the Den Mushi and report our situation. Call for reinforcements, as this unknown man is dangerous. Agent Sky ordered, aware of the threat they faced. Luffy had decimated several of his colleagues using the pistol's flames, reducing them to ashes in an instant. Luffy heard the orders and aimed his pistol at the men rushing toward the pirate ship. His agile and precise movements denoted the experience of someone who mastered the use of a firearm. Bang bang bang, the shots pierced the air, hitting targets with lethal precision. The heat of the flames enveloped the bullets, causing devastating havoc on the world government agents. Another dozen men fell on the pirate ship's deck, their lives taken by Luffy's unparalleled skill with the pistol. With each shot, chaos intensified, turning the deck into a battlefield where the world government faced the burning fury of the Straw Hat captain. Damn. Come on, are you going to let me kill all your men? Luffy taunted, keeping his distance while challenging Agent Sky. With no options left, Agent Sky forced his moonwalk, swiftly approaching Luffy in the air. As he headed in his direction, he executed a spin, unleashing a tempest kick cut toward his enemy. The cutting blue energy swiftly flew toward Luffy. With a beat of his wings, he agilely and gracefully dodged the attack, leaning to throw a punch at the opponent who was already close at that moment. Before Luffy could strike, however, Agent Sky proved to be faster. Closing in, he tilted his finger, launching something against his opponent. Finger pistol. Luffy skillfully dodged the attack at the last second but was doing so on purpose. Even losing his own attack, he dealt with the situation effortlessly. That attack is quite powerful, I envy that. I wish I had those techniques too. Luffy murmured, watching the supposed attacker grit his teeth after hearing his comment. Do not take this fight so lightly. He shouted, quickly rushing at Luffy with his sharp finger. Shi-ai, sound of cutting wind, shi-ai 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 bang shi-ai bang shi-ai shi-ai bang while Luffy dodged Agent Sky's sharp blows. He took advantage of the time and carefully aimed between dodges, shooting anyone on the pirate ship trying to reach the Den Den Mushi. How can you be so strong? There's no record of someone like you in the weaker sea. Agent Sky expressed a shadow of perplexity in front of Luffy. He realized that this young man had been playing with him all along. Someone with such power shouldn't be there, as Cypher Paul missions were conducted meticulously. He himself, chosen for a mission of utmost importance, should be the most powerful in this sea, and this unknown presence challenged all expectations. Clenching his teeth, Agent Sky resolved to switch to a different strategy. If you stop interfering with this operation, the government will not only allow you to leave but will also ensure a generous reward. Agent Sky tried to persuade, realizing that he wouldn't be able to defeat the individual in front of him with traditional methods. He was dealing with a wild card in the East Blue. After threatening me and mine, I don't care if you're from the world government, the Marines, one of the 4 emperors, or the Revolutionary Army. Even if I become the enemy of everyone and the most hunted man in this world, I don't plan to bow my head when my people are threatened or harmed. Luffy spoke with a cold voice, wasting no more time in that fight. With a beat of wings, he prepared to fly and deliver a punch against Agent Sky. Seeing this, Agent Sky quickly crossed his arms, applying the Iron Body technique. Iron Body, Luffy's punch hit Agent Sky in midair with overwhelming force, creating a shockwave that expanded through the airspace. The thunderous sound of the impact echoed through the sky, reverberating like thunder on the horizon. Agent Sky, the target of Luffy's explosive power, felt something he never imagined before. At the moment of impact, Agent Sky's body seemed to defy the laws of physics, flying like a cannonball through space with an erratic trajectory toward the pirate ship. The scene was almost surreal, with Agent Sky exploding a part of the ship with his own body. Crack! The sound of the impact echoed across the ships, reverberating like thunder. Mr. SKY. The remaining agents shouted in desperation, watching their leader being thrown like an unguided projectile. Worry and fear mingled on their faces. Luffy wasted no time and flew toward that hole, cutting through the barrier of astonished agents. Boom! Upon landing, he triggered a controlled explosion, wanting to avoid unnecessary attention. His focus was entirely on the fallen agent, aware of the danger he represented if he called for reinforcements. He wanted to attract as little attention as possible before entering the Grand Line. With dust hanging in the air and shards scattered, limiting visibility inside the ship, Luffy surveyed the area for any movement. Aware that his initial attack might not have been lethal, he remained vigilant. It was when, amid the dust, the agent suddenly emerged, using the instant transmission technique to appear in front of Luffy. Finger pistol, the agent's finger shot out quickly, connecting with the region of Luffy's chest where his heart rested, initially deeply surprising him. However, to the horror of the agent, the finger did not pierce Luffy's tough skin barrier. Wow, that was a slip on my part. Not having observation hockey is really a disadvantage, and I'm taking it quite arrogantly. I could be seriously injured if it weren't for my powerful body. Luffy murmured as he observed the spot where the finger was connected to him, speaking calmly as if the other party hadn't just tried to kill him seconds before. That's impossible. What kind of monster are you? Agent Sky lost composure, unable to believe what his eyes were witnessing. He had never seen someone resist that assassination technique, especially without using hockey or even Iron Body. If you had powerful hockey, the story might be different. Even with my body being strong and having potential, it's still not as developed as Kaido's or Big Mom's. Luffy commented, leaving the man even more stunned. Who are Kaido and Big Mom? How can this kid speak so casually about these names as if they're known here, in the East Blue? He exclaimed in his mind. Anyway, I'm going to kill you. Luffy spoke casually. He wouldn't let this agent leave alive, especially a man who threatened his acquaintances like this. I just hope to find some manual of the 6 styles on this ship. So, I guess this is goodbye. Luffy spoke calmly, pointing the pistol at the man and using his flames to simulate a bullet. Bang. Instant transmission, bang. Wow. This technique is really amazing. You still managed to escape the first shot. Luffy couldn't help but praise, surprised at the agent's ability to escape even at point-blank range. Ah. Damned. Ah. After all my efforts. Ah. I was so close. Ah. Why? Why did you have to appear now? He growled as if the world were committing the greatest injustice against him. Breathless, the agent had a wound above his heart, bleeding and burning. He might have escaped the first shot to the head, but Luffy followed him as he executed instant transmission and shot again, hitting him. Is this injury hurting you a lot? Luffy casually asked and continued. Don't glare at me with so much hatred. I'm just curious to understand a bit more about the effects of chaos flames, as you're the only one who survived after being hit by them. Luffy ignored the hateful expression of the agent and continued with his investigation. In addition to being the most intense flames among all devil fruits, they have a corrosive effect. I doubt you'll live for much longer now. Ah. I may die here today, but I realize that whoever you are, you're a threat, and I'll at least destroy you. Ah. Here. He said through gritted teeth. Quickly, without giving Luffy a chance to react, the agent grabbed a box next to him and opened it, revealing various devices. This made Luffy's eyes widen instantly. Even without exactly understanding what it was clear that they were explosives or some kind of dynamite. Die. Agent Sky shouted, pressing a button in the center of the box, not giving Luffy the opportunity to escape. Boom. Chapter 33, Drip to Barity 03. We're almost there. Zoro said, eager to join the fight as soon as possible, despite having faced opponents a few days earlier. Are they really pirates? I've never seen pirates dress like this. Nami commented, observing how organized this group's uniforms were. Weird, they're waving at us too, as if they've glimpsed some hope. Looking very happy about our approach. Usopp scratched his chin, perplexed. Maybe Luffy made friends with them. And they want to welcome us. Yamato concluded after pondering for a moment. Ow. Sharky. Megalo said that Chouchou-sama heard something like this. It's the Navy, we have reinforcements. Shirahoshi informed. So clearly, they're not our friends. Kuina commented the obvious. I wonder what Luffy did to them. Nami pondered. We're on a Navy ship, what did they expect? I just wonder why pirates seem so happy about the Navy's presence. I think Nami is right. Usopp reasoned. Anyway, let's find out soon. Zoro said, eager to approach and understand what was really happening there. What happened to Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi asked, expressing a bit of concern. I saw him descending forcefully onto that pirate ship, breaking everything with his landing. He was flying and fighting with someone using moonwalk. Yamato reported. Moonwalk? What's that? Kuina questioned. It's a technique used to walk in the air,